Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest is Walter Rucker. He's going to join us after the World Wide Web of Weird. He's actually in the panel. We'll see if he has. I haven't got to test with him yet, but maybe he'll join in on World Wide Web of Weird because we got a lot of weird to get to. We were gone for 2 weeks. We came back last week. It's good to hopefully get things back in a roll. I feel a little rusty. Had computer maintenance today. It threw me off. So if I'm off my game, it's because my computer is giving me a headache before the show. But I think we're good. Hopefully no technical problems now. We should be good. All right. Our guest, Walter Rucker, he is a CE5 experiencer, an expert on mediumship of all types. I did put in there the physical medium. He's not a physical medium. He is an expert on physical mediumship and other forms of mediumship. Also teaches out-of-body experiences. We're going to talk about ETs, his own experiences with the ET phenomenon of contactee experiencer. We're going to get into that, and we will open up the phone lines after the second commercial break like usual, and I'll get those phone lines out later. But you know what? We got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Walter Rucker. He's in the panel. I don't know. I think I saw him link in there or whatever, but we'll start the interview with him after the World Wide Web of Weird like usual. Joining me, as usual, too. I don't want to say what isn't the word with usual tonight because I feel unusual tonight. I don't know. A little weird, a little off. I got my lovely co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
It's good to be back, trying to get in the role. We were talking about last year. I was off for like a month, 2 months. This time we got away for just 2 weeks. So we got to get back in it. From St. Augustine, Florida as well, running the World Wide Web of Weird, we got Rob Autry. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm always feeling unusual and weird, so I fit right in.
I don't know. Maybe it's this weird world. I don't know. Crazy. We were talking before the show, about 2020. It's like, it's like, what were we saying before? That's I totally lost. I totally. And wait, there's more,
Wait,
that's what 2020 is like. Every time you see something happen, and it's like, wait, there's more. Yeah. That's what it feels like. Yeah, a little roller coaster ride. I've been back to work for a couple weeks, so that's kind of, that's why I'm off my game. This is like the first show I had to do where I worked before I had to do the show. Had all those. That was a nice thing about quarantine, having Sundays off and relax before I get to do on the show, relax my nerves, but back to work. Here I am. Got to be up early tomorrow too. So, but that's how it goes. We got a lot to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird. So let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, like I said, we've had the coronavirus, of course, now in the headlines for so long, and then it was murder bees, and now it's been the riots, and protests or whatever, but riots, people burning down cities. So, this is 2020. Wait, there's more. From Daily Mail, Yellowstone National Park in Montana is hit with nearly a dozen earthquakes in just 24 hours, with the strongest tremor measuring 3.1 magnitude. Yay! For those listening on the Paranormal Soup Radio Network, we are a webcast. We show videos and pictures and stuff, but I do try to narrate as best as possible. This one here from Yellowstone's National Park, Montana is hit with nearly a dozen earthquakes in just 24 hours, with the strongest tremor measuring 3.1 magnitude. The U.S. Geological Survey reported 11 quakes in West Yellowstone, Montana, with tremors ranging from 1.6 to 3.1 magnitude on the Richter scale. The tremors were about 3 miles deep and hit 15 miles outside the park. Altogether, the area has been struck by a total of 34 earthquakes in the past 30 days. On Friday, May 29th, a 3.1 magnitude earthquake was detected 15 miles outside of West Yellowstone and Montana, according to Idaho Statesman. Yellowstone is one of the most seismically active areas in the United States. Reads Yellowstone's National Park's website. Approximately 700 to 3,000 earthquakes occur each year, but you just got to add it on top of the fear news, right?
Maybe the earth will split open and murder hornets will pour out of the ground.
Right. If Yellowstone goes off, we're screwed. Just kiss your butt goodbye. It's over. The result of the extensive network of faults associated with the volcano and surrounding tectonic features, Yellowstone's National Park sits northwest of the region of Wyoming and is home to the bursting geysers, steam vents, and bubbling pools. I'd love to visit, but the day I visit, it's the day it decides, I'm going to go blow now. Right. Wouldn't matter. I mean, we're screwed. I'm screwed here in Indiana if that thing really goes. But yeah, that's just to add on to things. But, Earth is a changing. We got stuff going on. This one's from Norway, Article 2 from Unexplained Mysteries. Insane landslide sweeps house into sea. We'll show the video here in a second. Serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of constructing houses too close to the sea, this devastating event, which occurred in Norway's Alta municipality, saw a chunk of land of 2,100 feet across being swept into the ocean. It's got to be bigger than that. 2,100 feet. It's got to be a lot bigger than that. You'll see this thing. It's a lot more than that, I would think. Being swept in the ocean, carrying numbers of cabins and holiday homes along the ride. Some of the buildings managed to remain intact, at least initially, as the waves tossed them around. Fortunately, nobody was present at the time. However, a dog that had been in the area of the landslide was reportedly swept out to sea before being picked up by the crew of rescue helicopters. The dog was rescued. Go ahead and play the video. This is crazy.
That's a big chunk of land, man.
Yeah, that's more than 2,100 feet, right? I mean, you got 2-3 houses on that? I mean, it'd be cool to ride it for a minute knowing there's a boat ready to pick you up or something, but I think this whole thing falls apart. It's a long video. I don't think we're going to get time to watch all of it, but I mean, it eventually rips the whole land apart and you start seeing the houses go into the water. They must have knew it was coming since everybody got out of the houses.
I hope.
You said cool to ride it.
Would. Scary, but cool.
Look at this, man. There's a house just floating down stream.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
roof? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it looks like a Monopoly piece.
Another one out here. This one's taking off.
Yeah.
This one's holding strong right here.
Good solid building there.
Yep. Got a good foundation.
And it's gone.
And it's, yeah.
That
Man,
white
that's
house.
the thing of
Crazy.
nightmares right there.
2020. We got all the craziness of, earthquakes, houses falling into the ocean. Everybody keeps asking, where are the zombies? Well, just keep asking people. Just keep asking. Daily Mail. There's more. California cannibal 37 used ice pick to murder his grandmother. Why is it? Why ice picks always? Is it just the go-to of crazy weapons? Ice picks? Is it Basic Instinct influenced? I don't know. California cannibal 37 used an ice pick to murder his grandmother before his aunt found him eating the 90-year-old. A California man arrested Monday who used an ice pick to murder his grandmother before being found eating her by his aunt, authorities said. Police say they found Dwayne Wallach, 37, straddled over the 90-year-old Ruby Wallach, actively pulling out her flesh with his hands after they were called to the Richmond home by the victim's daughter. Wallach has been charged with murder with an enhancement to include the use of an ice pick and a knife. He's also facing mutilation charges. Ruby's daughter is said to have found her mom bleeding on the family room floor and her nephew in the room covered in blood before calling the police. Let's see.
Wouldn't that also be abuse of a corpse?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of abuses here.
That's a whole lot of something.
And the officer has entered the residence and found 37-year-old Dwayne Wallach straddling his 9-year-old grandmother. Ruby Wallach Dwayne was actively using his hands to assault the victim's neck and head. Law enforcement say they were forced to taser Wallach, who had been his grandmother's primary caregiver for a number of years, after giving him numerous commands and orders for him to stop his assault. The spokesman added 4 officers physically had to restrain him to get him into handcuffs. While doing so, Dwayne attempted to continue his assault on his grandmother. Ruby is said to have been missing pieces of flesh, and paramedics were called. Richmond police spokesman Sergeant Aaron Pomeroy told the LA Times, "I've seen it all in 26 years of law enforcement. I've never seen a crime scene of a victim that badly injured." Pomeroy said it is believed that Dwayne Wallach, who has no criminal history and no mental health issues, may have taken a synthetic drug. How many times have we talked about that on this show?
That's what I was wondering. I asked Rob that when I read this one. I'm like, what was that drug called that makes people eat their like arms and faces?
Yeah, there's a number of those synthetic drugs, man. There's a synthetic cocaine. There's a synthetic THC. That was going around for years, and I knew some cop friends in this town when they shut it down. This town was like, thank God. I'm a libertarian. I'm like all good for people doing natural drugs from the earth. The synthetic stuff is crazy. I've seen people go nuts on that stuff. Yeah. Bath salts. Remember, I was like, why are people sniffing bath salts? And I found out it's because they're sneaking in the synthetic cocaine in it. And then the synthetic THC is nothing to play around with either. She was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy is pending to see the cause of death. Yeah, she was eaten. That's what caused the death. I don't know. Wow. Another one. It wasn't Florida. It was California. This time that's on you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Wasn't Florida, man. It was California, man.
Whenever I hear of somebody doing something like this, the first thing I think now is it's got to be a synthetic drug, because people don't just do this stuff.
Right. It's like, no previous mental issues, no criminal history. Okay, synthetic drugs again.
Just wake up one day and say, I'm going to eat grandma.
Yeah, no.
No, she seems tasty. I don't know. I mean, maybe he just had enough of taking care of. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, then you bury her in the backyard. You don't
rip her
flesh out and eat her.
Bury her in the backyard. Don't eat her. It's overkill. All right, this next one, I have an email that I always forget to give to my audience and my fans. It's paranormal soup jbland at gmail.com. That's a JBLAND there at the end. And some people do get that, remember me saying that email me, and this one person did. He did not want me to use his name, but this video, this is what he said. No names in here. I contact you from the Midwest Paranormal Facebook page. By the way, you can go to the Midwest Paranormal Facebook page and send me a message there too if you're on Facebook. The enclosed videos from my friend who inadvertently videoed 3 mysterious objects high in the sky above Bartlett, Illinois on May 12, 2020. He really wasn't trying to do anything but record a crazy crow that was near his home. It didn't appear to make any sound. I was not there to witness this. He just posted on his Facebook page. What you may see up in the clouds are 3 blackish objects in cumulus clouds. Now, he sent me a message wondering him and his friend how they could what they should do with, or how they can figure out this. And I'm like, well, send it to MoveOn. I live a mile away from him, so I can state that the weather conditions at the 7:30 Chicago time was partly cloudy with some clear blue skies. The sun was setting, but it was still wasn't dusk. There was no detectable wind. It felt like 40 degrees outside. We live about 20 miles west of O'Hare International Airport. Most landing approaches runs have happened above us so many times the landing gear of the aircraft are initiated. Planes are definitely well below the elevation of the clouds at this point. It doesn't look like a plane. It might be hard to see. See if you can blow it up too. It's just a very short clip. You're going to see these dark, I zoom in on it, these dark, like 3 dots. It might be hard to see. Sometimes the share screen of it comes across. There's like really light. You can see them. They're just like 3 dark objects. They're like way up there. And he's, the guy just takes his camera, sees them really quick, and that's it. That's a very short clip, but I don't know. But hey, I love it. Send me stuff. Paranormal soup jbland at gmail.com. That is the email. I don't know what they could be. Thoughts? I don't know. They're just dark objects up there, but I middle of the day.
strangeness. Yeah, I mean that's cool. It's in the daytime, you know.
I actually kind of missed it because I was replaying the chat.
I'll play it one more time. I want to see it one more time. Watched it on my phone a lot, but actually on my phone I had better contrast. It's a contrast when we throw these videos up here that kind of throws stuff off. There it is. You just see him for a split second as he rolls up these 3 dark objects up in the clouds.
That is interesting. It's almost like if there was a plane like behind the clouds.
But it's look how
no lights.
I don't yeah. And it seems like they're just sitting up there. I know it's quick video, but
definitely unusual.
That one was in Chicago, not far from me. I'm in Indiana, Michigan City, Indiana. If you look at tip of Lake Michigan, I'm like right there. That's where my town is. So I'm very familiar with Chicago Airland area. But this one is from Muncie, Indiana. This comes from Singular 14. Indiana man reports recent sighting of amber orbs near Muncie. Indiana resident Gary Patterson contacted Tobias Wayland, the Singular 14 Society's lead investigator, early Friday morning to report a sighting of 3 amber-colored orbs he had seen on the south of Muncie, Indiana. You got to get the camera out there, buddy. In a message sent to Wayland, Patterson said that he just arrived home after seeing the orbs. I was driving east-south of Muncie approximately at 12:40 a.m. when I saw an orb straight into my east. Then when I could see better, there was another orb more to the south. The reason I'm bringing this article up, not just because it was Indiana, I've had several, because people know what I'm into, in this town, several people, including my wife, who thought she saw something once, seeing the same kind of thing. So Patterson described the orbs as an amber color and said there was no movement or flashing. They appeared coin size, he said, but he couldn't discern what their actual size was. It's really hard to tell with a light, but most have appeared the same size and are usually the same color, amber orange. He said, I don't know one to the north looked bigger. It was a steeper angle, more above me to be close enough or large enough for one to take look larger above me. I would guesstimate 3 to 4 feet across, no smaller. As he watched, the one strangest to the straight to the east shut off. So I looked around and there was one that seemed closer to the north. As I was driving, there was trees in the way on some parts. Then one on the north shut off. I could still see the one on the southeast and it was gone. Patterson couldn't find any mundane explanation for the orbs. I saw no airplanes and it was cloudy to the east with broken cloud cover overhead. Historical weather data confirms that the sky was mostly cloudy at the time of Patterson's sighting. The area south of Muncie is rural, blah, and no obvious landmarks or easily identified phenomena would seem to explain Patterson's sighting. I mean, it's pretty rural. I mean, there's a lot of empty cornfield, nothing, children the corn kind of thing. More than corn in Indiana. No, not much more. But maybe UFOs. Maybe UFOs. I don't know. I can knock on Indiana. I'm a Hoosier. All right. This one was New Jersey, and it was very viral. Trio of UFOs filmed in New Jersey. A curious piece of footage, I got this from Coast to Coast. Curious piece of footage out of New Jersey shows a puzzling trio of mysterious lights hovering in the night sky, and some observers suspect, I am really butchering tonight, that they belong to a triangular UFO. So these people are calling out. They're saying triangular UFO. The intriguing scene was reportedly filmed by a skygazer near the community of Sicklerville on May 31st and was subsequently posted online to Reddit a few days later. The bewildered witness later explained that he and his girlfriend had been looking at the stars when they noticed that the 3 strange red orbs had floated into their field of view. See, this is what me and my wife during quarantine went out like every night, just like go look up, see if we can see anything. Never. Come on, these people get so lucky. In the video, the lights can be seen hovering in the night sky for approximately 2 minutes before eventually disappearing behind some trees. Go ahead and play the footage. I don't remember if there was audio with this one or not. It's all right. But yeah, it definitely has a triangle shape. And that's what I'm saying. With the one in Muncie, that it sounds like separate orbs. I've had people seeing like the orbs like that, but as a triangular shape. My wife thought she saw one go by really fast. I think it was Todd that used to come on the show. Todd, our Miss Todd. He saw something like that. So there's been a lot of this stuff around this area. But this was New Jersey. And then, of course, if you missed last week's show, you should go back and watch World Wide Web Weird. Besides having Katrina and Rhodey on, which were amazing, you should watch World Wide Web Weird because we had a bunch of stuff from the Brazilian UFO wave that's happening right now. which are having triangle UFOs and all kinds of weird stuff happen down there. And if you know anything about the history of ufology, and Brazil in 1977 had a massive UFO wave where they were attacking people. So I'm kind of like keeping my eye on the Brazil story still. Not that I want UFOs to attack Brazil. I have nothing against Brazil. But, you know, there's the mad scientist, science fiction geek in me that kind of wants to see it happen. But yeah, that looks like a triangle UFO. I digress. All right, this last one from the Sun, the USA Sun, or US Sun. That's the one. Yeah, the Sun.com, where you go to sun.com. That's the name of this. Yeah, the Sun, whatever. Terminator. China considering plans to genetically modify soldiers to make army of Terminator style troops. When I saw this article, I'm like, are you kidding me? Seriously? Hey, wait, there's more. I mean, if anybody's seen us talk about, you know, some of the stuff China's been doing, like their social credit score system, calling the computer that operates it all Skynet. I'm like, literally, Terminator is not a blueprint. It's not a blueprint for what you should do. It's more like what you shouldn't do. But anyways, so Terminator, China considering plans to genetically modify soldiers to make army of Terminator-style troops. China may be planning to genetically modify soldiers for an army of Terminator-style super troops. A defense think tank has warned. Experts at RUSI say GM soldiers could be faster, genetically modified, I should say. Soldiers could be faster, stronger, cleverer than any battlefield opponents, even feel no pain. Their DNA could also be adapted to help them recover more quickly from injuries or give them superior hearing and night vision. RUSI professor John Luth said the threat is obvious and real. Chinese money could be stealing a march on Western armed forces, and that is deeply concerning. The warning comes after Chinese scientists He Jiankui, I'm sure I butchered that, said he used genetic editing technology to make genetically modified babies, which we covered in the World Wide Web Weird, and there was a lot of people upset by that in the scientific community. Genetically modified technology is proven with plants. It could absolutely be applied to a person, Professor Louth added. And China it is reasonably to assume that they are enhancing their battlefield soldiers on all these fronts. China jailed Dr. Jiankui for illegal medical practices over his claims to have made 3 babies immune to HIV. But investigations show that China's military chiefs are backing research into human gene editing trials. Professor Louth said that the U.S. has also invested heavily in military biotech and human enhancement, but warned that UK is lagging behind. But are we going to, we're investigating, are we going to make genetically modified soldiers? I hope not.
If other people have them.
Again, go to your science fiction. It kind of like maps out why we shouldn't do these things. Like, I'm a Star Trek fan. Khan. You ever see Wrath of Khan? Or seen Khan from
I mean, it is the ultimate soldier.
Yeah, they made a bunch of super soldiers in Star Trek for and that's World War III. and yeah, it didn't go well. They get the nice. Maybe hey, if we get our genetically modified soldiers, World War III, at least tell me the future Star Trek. That'd be great.
I really don't want to see this happen, but something tells me they already have it if they're talking about it.
I'll be back.
I should play that right before commercial. If I was a pro, I would have done that. No, but the other thing, with everything going on with the rioting, and let's defund and I'm not getting into politics. I'm not getting into this tonight. But everybody talk about defunding the police and having private owned police departments. I'm like, has anybody not seen RoboCop? That's basically the premise of RoboCop. They like totally get rid of the publicly paid police department, hire a corporation to have security forces, and they come up with cyborgs and AI robots that are so stupid they can't tell you're holding a gun or not and kill you. That's I'm just saying it was all these. That's why I'm a big science fiction fan. They tell you what you should not do. There's a little mad scientist in me too that kind of enjoys like the science fiction stuff that people are trying to do, but really no, let's not.
But genetic hacking, the glitches.
But it's just like the nuclear weapon. Yeah, the China does it. Oh, okay, now America's got to do it. And next thing you know, we have a whole different breed of people that are modified soldier slaves. No, it's not ethical. It's immoral. That's why I can't stand China. It's nothing against the people. It's their corrupt, evil government. Talking, let's make Terminator soldiers. Of course, that's this professor making that statement, I'm sure. But you know what? It is amazing that some of the people like Kim Jong-un, what is his favorite movie? Terminator 2. Like, it's not a roadmap.
What's the story on that guy too, by the way? Did he die or did he not die?
No, he was alive.
Okay. So I didn't even. I
He did it. They say he did it, and it's not a bad move to draw out his enemies in his own government, like people are ready to take over. Classic evil bad guy, James Bond bad guy. Way to go. I wonder if he had a tank with sharks. Drop him in it. I don't know. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest is Walter Rucker. He's going to talk about his experiences, his CE5 experiences, alien contact. He's an expert on mediumship, especially physical mediumship. And that's a really interesting subject. The last guest we had on it really talked a lot about that was Gary Williams, who had a lot of cool experiences with physical mediumship. It's something I've always been interested in. And we'll get into what that is more later on. And also OBEs, out-of-body experiences. We got a lot. This guy's going to be a paranormal soup kind of guy. He's done a lot of different topics, I think. But that we'll be back after this short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Bring life to the dead. 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 Enter the occult world of necromancy. You were brought here for one purpose. Necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy, starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy, is now available on pennantpublication.com, Amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, a rock fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Walter Rucker. He is a CE5 experiencer, expert on mediumship of all types with an emphasis on physical mediumship. He teaches out-of-body experiences. Married with 2 sons, he's a native of Georgia and Tennessee, living in Southwest Florida. 1980 to 1986, he was in commercial real estate development. 1987 to 1995, IT mainframe, IBM, management and sales, hardware to Fortune 100 companies. 1996 to 2004, he was owner of Pro Train Gyms, advanced sports training for professionals, amateur athletes, only strength power regimens for 20-plus sports. 2005-2009, developed software for the U.S. Navy Medical and Military Intelligence, LACICOS, online leave authorization, check-in, check-out, biometric and tracking personal systems. Wow. Sport official for over 40 years, baseball, basketball, soccer, fast and slow pitch, softball, lacrosse, owner of Officials Unlimited, LLC, present academic metaphysical research and extraterrestrials and spiritual and etheric topics, out-of-body experience over 100 OBs into astral spirits and other realms. He's a UFO experiencer, ships, he's a cruise, physical mediumship historian, specific focus on Leslie Flint. Oh, I know that. Attended sponsored over 24 physical mediumship demonstrations, expertise in ET channel communications, experts in direct channel spirit communications, largest Leslie Flint library in existence. Wow. Beginning in fall 2020, teaching continuing education courses in UFO, ETs, and similar at local colleges and universities. That is our guest tonight. This is, I told you, going to be a soupy kind of guest. We're going to like the name of the show. We're going to get in a lot of different topics, I'm sure. I kind of want to cover them all. But we will take your phone calls after the second commercial break. Later tonight, I will give those phone lines out. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right. Well, hopefully he's here. Welcome to the show,
I'm
Walter.
here.
You hear me? You sound
I'm
all right?
here.
You're here?
You tell me.
I hear
You're
you.
fine.
All right. Well, I ran down kind of quickly. Yeah, it seems like you've had a very jack of all trades kind of life. You've done a lot of different things, but what brings you here tonight is when you say CE5 experiencer, is that Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
Yes, and there's some loose definitions of CE5 experiences. Mine, if I was to say, it would be on the light side. It was an experience that I have that still to this day, I don't know if it was an out-of-the-body experience or just a dream, but it happened back in my teens. And this was well before Whitley Strieber and Communion and all the E.T. Gray pictures were out. This is like 1968. And I just drove to the place with the chain link fence. I've been there a million times before, right around the corner from my house. And I can look into a field and see that there was a craft on some kind of tripods and a couple of little creatures working around that craft. 50 meters away, maybe less. It's hard to say. And when they turned and looked at me, it was a soulful look that I'll never forget, because it was like they zoomed in directly on my eyes and passed the message along, which was, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And I kind of took their advice, and apparently in this dream or out-of-body experience or true experience that I had, it's difficult to say. I exited, got in my car, and went back.
You were driving. You think there, so you got back. You had this experience. You see this craft basically landing in a field. You're driving. You see it land in the field, and you see the grays, a typical like gray, like the 4 foot, 3 foot kind, or.
Yeah, it's very typical gray, and that was one of the things that really strikes me about my experience, because for many years I didn't really think about it, Jason, and but was the fact that they were what we would call today typical grays, but back in 1968 there was no such thing.
Right.
But no, it was, I just got out of bed, got into my car and drove, and it wasn't like I was driving. It was just like got in my car and just went down this road, got out of the car, saw the grays, get back in the car, go back home. And then when it was all over, I started the whole thing over again. I woke up and...
Where was this located? I missed that part. Where were you?
Yeah, this was Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was 17 or so. And I was going to baseball practice, was why I was driving down that way. And so that when I woke back up, from this experience, I didn't remember. I picked up my cleats and my glove and everything I usually do, got in my car and went back the same route again. And this time it was raining. It was just raining, absolutely just pelting rain. And I was thinking, this is really strange. I don't remember it raining here. And yet physically I was already wet. And I didn't understand that either. I went to get my buddy to pick him up. And I said, let's go to baseball practice. And he looked at me and says, "It's been raining all night long. What are you doing here?" I woke him up, and we used to practice at 6 a.m. I woke him up and he was not happy. And I got back in the car and drove back and just, what is going on here? So to this day, I don't really understand exactly how to categorize that experience. It's somewhere between OBE, extraterrestrial, and I wrote a thing called Blurring the Lines about this, an article about this, Jason, that addresses the subject. When is an out-of-body experience an ET experience, and when is an ET experience an out-of-body experience? And I think those are very difficult and very hard lines to categorize with you.
You said it was 1968?
Yeah, it was 67, 68 summer, Memphis, Tennessee.
What year was Betty and Barney Hill? I knew it was in the 60s.
They were further on than that. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I have a very good friend, Kathleen Barton, who is Betty and Barney Hill's niece. And I emailed her about this. And I said, look, I've had this experience about this gray in 1968. When was the first time that that Betty and Barney Hill spoke of this or anyone else. And that she said, well, they didn't even speak about it until 1965 or 66, even though they had the experience in the early 60s. They sat on it for like 5 years.
That's right. It was early 60s. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a time that they had the experience and the time that they released it publicly. There's two different pieces to that I think most people forget.
Yeah. Well, it took them time to accept it. Because this is the thing, like, okay, I'm still dealing with my own experience, but what screws me up about it is that I am, ever since I can remember, been into sci-fi, aliens and stuff, and X-Files and stuff, but I was about your age, so I was 18, 17, and I had an experience on a camping trip, and I can't say, is that real or not? Did I really have that experience? Because I've been influenced by so much. Is that real? There was some weird stuff to it, but with you, there was nothing to influence you, really. I mean, of course, there was the UFO invasion kind of movies of the time and that, but with you, it wasn't, like you said, there wasn't Whitley Strieber, it wasn't the Greys, even the movie they made later on with the Betty and Barney Hill case, the aliens had the kind of big bobbly eyes, little similarities to Greys, but in that movie, they didn't really show gray aliens taking them. The one they had Darth Vader, what's his name? I can't think of his voice. James Earl Jones. He played Barney.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But that's the thing. It wasn't in the consciousness. So you guys, for Betty and Barney Hill, and for you, there's nothing to relate to. Even the idea of missing time, that's not something people were talking about then. When you tell your story, to me, it doesn't sound like they took you out of your an astral out of body. You might have been actually physically taken and they put you back, because that sounds so similar to other stories where people were out driving something, the next thing you know, they're back in their home and their car's parked there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the things that I've been doing is a project of getting together with 6 or 7 ladies that claim to be and have shown great evidence to be Zeta human beings. And I'm collecting them together for an interview process and the like. And during that process, I kind of got to know a couple of them, really well. And I asked them about an incident I kept having that lasted 30 or 40 years that were fairly frequent, once a week, sometimes more, where I was just at a party or at a baseball game, whatever it happened to be. And then all of a sudden I would turn around to walk out of that event or just go to the bathroom. Whatever. And the next thing I know, I just was swathed with this black, what I could call a cloud, but it wasn't wet and whatnot. And it scared me to death. And I could feel it coming. I could hear it coming. And I knew it. There was no way I could get away and run. And I asked these ladies, I said, what do you think about this? And almost to a one, they said, well, this is a pretty typical screen vision of how you deal with extraterrestrial intervention. And I thought, holy cockeye, wow, that really doesn't sound right and whatnot. And so I tried it out on my wife, and she said, what else would you think it was? And it was just like the bells went off. It was absolutely exactly what was going on. So the problem becomes one of how do you deal with these things, and what are the interactions that have to come in our modern day with these beings that are here and want to communicate. And those are the answers that I'm trying to get to.
For me, doing this show is what awoken it for me. Reading a book, actually. And I've read Whitley Strieber's Communion. I've read a lot of different books. I'm actually a big Whitley Strieber fan. I read these other books, but there was a guest I had on. I read his book, and maybe it's because his was a camping trip as well. Incident at Devil's Den by Terry Lovelace, good friend. And the reason we became a good friend is because I started to ask him, I'm like, okay, I need to talk to you, because when I read his book, it started bringing up things. But what really he points out in this book, and I guess, and maybe it's for me, it's because I've had all this fiction and stuff around me that I just write everything off. But it seemed like I've been wired for so long to look away from these memories. It's not just the camping trip. There's other things that I've had. I'm like, oh, it's just a dream, just a dream, just a dream. You know, like I look away from it and I didn't want to talk about it, even though I've had this fascination and interest with it all these years, all my life. It's like I've been wired not to admit the things that have happened to me.
Yes. Yeah. Look, Terry Lovelace is a friend of mine, by the way. We did a 4-part series called The Greys, The Greys.
Yeah.
And with him and a couple of other folks, it's up on YouTube. And so I got to know Terry pretty well. His story is just absolutely amazing. And the further you get into it, the more amazing it becomes. But I'll tell you something about Terry that's really kind of funny. He has the same problem that you do.
Yeah.
Which is how do you assimilate all this? What does this all really mean? I mean, what am I supposed to do next? How do I process this in my best way? Is this in my interest? I mean, the number of questions that come up when you start having these kinds of interactions are they're immense. They're emotional, they're psychological. And be honest with you, I think that the Greys themselves, who led me on my little escapade in 1968 where I saw them, I think they shielded me from all that because there was nothing horrific about what I saw. It was nothing questionable. It was just a knowing. It really wasn't anything that would cause any concern. And by the way, they muted the they muted the memory of that for it must have been 35 or 40 years. But Jason, I hear where you're coming from. Because it's the same thing I hear from all of the contactees, all of the so-called abductees, is that
look at Terry. He went for how long in his life before he actually looked back at his journals and looked back at all this stuff that happened to him, like he just wrote it off. And that's what I'm saying. It's like you're wired to look away from it. You're wired to not even look at the memories. You're not just to let it go and move on. Even if you, like me, have a fascination with it, I looked away from my own experiences. Like I wouldn't touch upon them.
Yeah, I don't think that is necessarily a natural response. I think that's a response that is getting drilled down into us by folks that have spent their entire lives and careers in trying to make us feel as if we're unimportant or what we see is not worthy or all these things. And it's difficult to break away from that. I mean, gosh, I'm 68 years of age. I've been putting up with it for almost 58 years now. And it took me until my mid-50s before I really got to the other side of all this, indoctrination and brainwashing and all these other things. Jason, is what you're feeling. And what you're doing, you're struggling against all that stuff. And that's good because it should be a process of struggle, not in a painful sense. It should be a process of struggle in a learning experience, in a learning condition. And you're going through that, and you're at a great age to do that. God, I wish I was your age and coming through the same, really seriously, the same pipeline of information that you were going to have. I'd almost start over again for that.
But what amazes me about it for myself is that I've had this huge interest in all this since I was a kid. I was 10 years old and I read Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Daniken. I've been convinced since I was a kid that most of the Old Testament Bible is aliens. So, that all these things I believe in, but these experiences that happened later in my life when starting when I was 17, and maybe there's stuff when I was a kid, but when I started when I was 17, there's a paranormal thing called a shadow person experience that I had that tormented me that was, I think, connected to this too. But I guess I focused on that paranormal ghostly kind of side, but I didn't realize the camping trip and other things that have happened that I just wrote off. Didn't pay any attention to. It's just a dream, I don't want to look at it. And that's just what amazes me that that for a long time until just something when I was reading Incident at Devil's Den, maybe it's the similarity to the camping experience. My experience is nowhere near as distressful or terrorizing as Terry's. Nowhere, not even a smidget close. But it woke me up to the fact that I did have something happen to me.
Yeah, and you're off on a real journey now because you're going to find more Terry Lovelaces out there and more Zeta humans out there, and you're going to watch your show, I think, kind of transfigure in a lot of ways.
Can you explain what a Zeta human is?
Yeah, the sixth Zeta human ladies that I'm going to be interviewing and putting out a series of podcasts on. Now, I'll drop you a few names. Judy Carroll, Sherry Wild, that's with a D and an E. Let's say Susie Hansen. And there's a couple of others in there that haven't quite come on board yet, but have indicated, Helen Kay and a few others, that they're going to participate in this. And these people have either one of two claims. They either claim to be that they are dual consciousness, Judy Carroll in particular, and some of the others. And dual consciousness means that they are part Zeta and part human. They're part extraterrestrial and part human, two minds working within one body. And you can see that might not a hybrid. No, not a hybrid. Right. A hybrid is an individual that exists on our physical reality that is a result of genetic manipulation, but still plays within what we call the human framework of one consciousness at a time. So these people have written thousands of pages of books about this. And what they're claiming is very simply this, that they have had Zeta lives on Earth, that they have human lives on Earth, obviously now. They can remember great bits of their Zeta lives, and they were very specific about the things that they remember, such as being involved in the Roswell incident and numerous other kinds of extraterrestrial human contacts. So what we're looking at here is almost an expose, in a way, of this advancing this idea of, that there are humans and that there are human hybrids, that there are extraterrestrial beings living here on Earth within human containers, 100% extraterrestrial. And that we also have these splits.
Well, you see, this whole topic, when it gets to the alien thing, I'm like completely fascinated by, for a lot of reasons. I'm a Gnostic, but I'm a spiritual Gnostic. I believe in an afterlife, and I've had some very vivid past life dreams that make me believe that we live other lives. And I've always thought, people could have lived on other planets in past life. We've talked about this on the show countless times. One of the times when I was in my early 20s, me and my cousin, who's only a month apart from me, we were really close. We grew up like brothers. We're trying to get into meditation, and I was trying to teach him meditation. We're doing candle meditation, and he's sitting there looking at me, and he kind of flipped out on me a little bit. He goes, "Okay, I don't know what I just saw, but you looked like almost like the gray alien, but you look bluish. And it's just for a few seconds, and I don't know what I saw." And he said, "I saw these little lights spinning around you." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what you're seeing, but you put down whatever you're doing." But that, made me wonder, because I've had this since I swear, Walter, since I was born. And it could be my mom. Hi, Mom, if you're watching. Because my mom, she's me and her on the same kind of thing. Definitely a lot of influence. My mom I grew up in an open household, basically. But I've always had this feeling since I was a little kid, maybe it's a Star Trek, I don't know, that aliens have been here, that they formed civilization. And I even wrote a song when I was a teenager, basically the first line of the song is, "I always felt I was an alien." That resonates with me. I would not be surprised to find out in a past life I was an alien. So the Zeta thing that you mentioned, these women Zeta, is that the same like Zeta Reticuli, like the Benny Barty Hill where they showed her the map and everything? That's that Zeta Reticuli, that they think they came from that.
Yeah, and you have to be careful, because Zeta Reticuli is sort of like saying Milky Way.
True.
It's
it could be somewhere in large area.
Yeah, it's some large area, and they may have existences at this particular time in their Zeta lives on planets that are within that system. But a lot of them will tell you that their Zeta lives are on ships, and that's a pretty common thing, by the way. If you listen to, and I have for 30 years now, for instance, Bashar will tell you, Daryl Anko channels Bashar is an Essassani Zeta, and he's been doing this for decades, and he will tell you that most of the time they're living on ships now. They're not living on planets, but their ships are almost as big as planets. So what's the reason? Planets don't move, ships do. So you're going to hear a lot of that conversation about their existence on ships.
Well, and see it's the other thing that resonates with me. You can ask, when I was a little kid, I used to draw blueprints and diagrams of spaceships like the Enterprise and 2001 Space Odyssey. I had a fascination with spaceships since a little age, and I wanted to live on a spaceship. I felt like, the hum of the Enterprise, or, Star Trek Next Generation. I loved it when they walk in their little nice cabins and you hear the hum of the Enterprise. Like, just that's where I want to be. I want to be on the spaceship and look out my window and see space. I felt that every way, so I wouldn't be surprised if I'm Zeta. I would not, But on ships, is the planet gone? Is that the question? Like they're nomads.
The Zeta beings themselves, again, we're talking about a very large thing, but there is the history of the Zeta beings interacting with humans. One portion of it, and probably the major portion of it, is that they were in a different dimension, a different galaxy, and they destroyed their planet just sort of more or less like we did. And they kind of decided that they're going to funnel down and give us some of our DNA. And so they start taking our DNA up to their ships and manipulating them with the Zeta DNA. And that started to produce a series of hybrid beings. I mean, we're all hybrids, but a different set of hybrid beings. And, part of the reason for that is to assure that there would be a post-Earth apocalypse human race. And the other part of it is that they kind of screwed their own thing up, and they were trying to take care of their own genetic makeup and their own ideas and concepts of what they were supposed to be doing, and continue their own race. So there's when you have to be very careful when you start talking about Zeta beings. Now, the ones that I'm speaking with have particular places within the Zeta Reticuli system that they claim origins from, but again, they're mostly on ships. So it's almost inconsequential where they came from. It's a message and messenger thing, which is one of the most prominent things I've learned from my extraterrestrial research, is that there's a lot of buzz and noise out there. You can look at people in the eyes and say, I think this guy's pretty or ugly. I don't like him. I do like him. But it's basically in the messages. And I would say to you, Jason, that I will send to you after we're through with all this a bunch of links of stuff that I have up on cloud storage where you can look at this yourself, because it's not a coincidence that you seem to have some kind of Zeta affiliation here. And if it is, you'll find out very soon when you spend some time with my Zeta friends and other places where you may want to get Zeta information from. And look at those things and see if it continues to drive your interest. And if it does, you got your answer. And if it doesn't, you got your answer.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about doing like regression or trying to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for it or not. It's still something I'm trying to understand. I saw somebody comment about like the physical mediumship. I just want to clarify, people. I accidentally put in the post of this physical mediumship under his name, that he's not a physical medium. He's an expert on that. Well, I want to get into that subject too. And like I said, I'm a bit. I named the show, Walter, Paranormal Soup, because I believe Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts, other entities, all these things are connected in some way. Not that they're the same thing, but they're all, there's an underlying unifying theory for all this, the paranormal, that ties it all together, a source where all this comes from, for all the weirdness, is what I believe. And there's a lot of this, because you mentioned, that they said, you mentioned containers. I don't remember the old Art Bell episodes where he interviewed John Lear, and you talk about the moon being the soul capacitor, and that the aliens referred to us as containers. When I first heard that, many years ago, something just bing, like drew my attention. I was fascinated with that. I still am. That idea that we're like, containers. Do you think these Zetas have any kind of relationship to you said they're extra dimensional? right? They're not even from our dimension. So do they have some tie to our afterlife and like our reincarnation and all that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And if you go back and look at what is considered an accurate history of how humans came about, um, you will also have to follow on with that line of thinking of how humans were created and the genetic manipulation by the extraterrestrial races, and most often picked out are the Anunnaki. And if you go along that way, you have to come to a point where it says, well, okay, now you create these physical containers and then they die. Now what happens? And at some point, some extraterrestrial race had decided, and this is laid at the Anunnaki's lap, but
Yeah.
that there has to be a container, another spiritual container, where there's some place of transition that you go when the afterlife it commences, when you die. And this could be any kind of limited or not limited environment that you have chosen to go to because you chose this in your pre-birth setup and plans. You chose that you would go through life and do this and that and do what we're doing and have free will, make some choices and go off this road and that road, and ultimately that you would die. And when you die, there's going to be a place that you want to go because it's part of the experience of living. And so consequently, exactly where that place is and what goes on there is, I guess that's up for some conversation. But it seems to be that it is a given that there is a place where you can go to review your life and to spend any other time that you would like to reassess and plan your next move on. And if your vibrational level is higher so that's not necessary, you just pass right through that and you come into a choice of, okay, now what do I want to do? Do I want to go back and incarnate in that hellhole of Earth? Or do I want to go to Saturn, or do I want to go to the fifth dimension of the Antiquities, or whatever it is? It begins to be a real fun situation.
Yeah, what's going on Earth right now? I what do the other alien planets look like right now? Well, but that's my fascination with it. If aliens are involved, I mean, one of the things that really like set Art off in that episode, or that interview with John Lear was like, like maybe you shouldn't go to the light. I actually talked to John Lear on another radio show about this. He said it all came about because him and Whitley Strieber were talking a few nights before, and it was kind of something him and Whitley were talking about, like maybe you shouldn't go to the light. I don't know. The whole them being from another dimension too. Is fascinating, but to the point of the ancient aliens, like the Sumerian Anunnaki, I always get it wrong. That seems like a totally different thing than the Zetas. That seems like they were a different race, a different alien species that came here and we started us on a genetic path of of creating us.
Well, we have a tendency to look at our Earth history in linear terms, or even more than that, kind of like the Bible. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. And you can look back and see, who were the responsible for all those individual events. And they're almost always individual people or groups of people that are involved. That's not the way it works here. I mean, the extraterrestrials have been coming here for millions of years. There are galactic councils. There are commissions of interest with each other. There is a communication with each other. And they each carry out their own particular set of agreements or skills or whatever in order to get accomplished, which is the primary accomplishment of why we have benevolent extraterrestrial contact. And that is to get accomplished the education of us out of our three-dimension reality that we're in, to think more holistically, to think more extraterrestrially, and to begin to understand that we have a much greater place in the universe than these little meat bodies that we're suiting up to be. So there's a point in that conversation that you have to back off and just say, okay, all right, let's take it at face value and analyze it, see if it agrees or doesn't agree with us, and take from whatever that information is and move forward.
You wonder, what I've always wondered is, like, you've heard people, different people say there's 72 races here, or 52 races, or 100 different races. It's like, why don't all of them be coming to this one little space rock out on the edge of the Milky Way galaxy? And one of the things I thought is, well, maybe they're not all aliens in sense of coming from other planets, but they're extra dimensional, or even parallel universes and different timelines. I thought this when I was a kid. I went to this museum. I don't remember where I was. It was with my family or somewhere. And they had this little display of what man would look like in a 3 or 4 or 5,000 years or something like that. And it looked very alien grayish. It really did. And, that sparked my little imagination to go, I wonder if they're time travelers, Then I, later in my life learned about parallel universes and possible alternate timelines. They could be, you think it's possible the Zetas could be an alternate version of us from a future timeline?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the things. Again, we're talking about a broad band of people here, or a broad band of beings. So there are Zetas that are absolutely our future. Matter of fact, Bashar states that he's actually a Essassani Zeta that's 300 years in our future, that he's already had a physical reality life on here, and that this is what it looks like 300 years from where we are now. So there's enough information out there that backs up your claim. But I want to drop back to something about you said about the transfiguration that you were having, about looking and finding yourself, seeing yourself as a Zeta being. Did I get that right?
I did it. Well, my cousin did. I did not see that. He saw that.
That's
I don't
typical,
know.
though.
Yeah,
that's typical, because if when I send you the links and you get to look into my 6 Zeta sisters, you'll find that there's a lot of that same kind of information coming from them. That it came from, a reflection in a mirror, or it came from somebody else viewing them. But there was always a knowingness that when they had this transfiguration, for whatever reasons it is, that it was actually them. There was not a doubt in their mind. And I sense there's no doubt in yours.
Well, I doubted my cousin. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, buddy, I'll put you down.
Okay, well, that relationship's over with, so let's move on.
No, I love him dearly. But, the one, he said bluish. That was one of the things that he struck him out, is that I started to turn blue. Like, saw my, whole face, everything turned bluish, very bluish. And then my eyes get black, like big and black. Like, it's like kind of like for a minute turned into this grayish, like the gray, but blue is what he said. And it freaked him out. I've heard things about bluish colored aliens. Is there anything to that? Because
I think, again, we have to be kind of careful here, because there is a great concern, and I mean a huge concern among the extraterrestrials, especially the Zetas, that when they either incarnate here, or more directly, when they have a exposure of themselves here, that they are presented in such a way, that they choose to present themselves in such a way that is not fearful. So they will look into your head and see something that you think is not fearful, and present themselves that way. So it's not. Yes, pretty much as clowns. That's
not doing a very good job, aliens. Clowns, usually 90% of people are going to be like, no, that's worse.
Yeah, I know. I've never understood the clown thing. I'm with you.
Yeah, I've heard it, though.
It's like, come on, guys. Clowns? Really? I mean,
yeah,
but they may present themselves as animals, balls of light, whatever it is that you are willing to accept, because the bottom line is you're the one that called them in the first place. In the pre-life contract you made the specific contract with them to come in and present themselves in such and such a way so that you could have that learning experience. So how they present themselves has a heck of a lot more to do with your own fearfulness and where you need to grow from. And if they scare the bejesus out of you, there's a reason for that too. And if you listen to the people who have had these Zeta contacts or even other extraterrestrial contacts and have lived through the process of it, what you'll find is an amazing thing. It's absolutely amazing. They will come out on the other end of this horrific experience. This Terry Lovelace is an example.
Yeah.
Drew Carroll's. You come out of these things, it's all love and great, and when you're coming back. So it's really an incredible phenomena. And I said, I wish I was your age and getting a chance to go through it with your new set of eyes.
Well, I don't know if it's all rosy like for Terry. I mean, the physical things done to him, I would not wish upon anybody. I mean, he's woken up like, where it looked like he'd been hit by a car. I mean, that does some pretty, that's the thing. We don't know what we're dealing with. If there's multiple races, who knows which one's taking you, which one's one could be good, one could be bad, one could be neutral, one could, we don't know what their intentions are. Now, I want to go back a little bit to, the beginning when we talked about you had your experience in 1968. When you saw these beings, did they when they looked in your eyes, can you recall anything about what they were trying to communicate to you? Or do you remember any reason to the point of that interaction?
Yeah, it was absolutely without any hesitancy that they were trying to communicate the fact that we're here. And outside of that, and the annoyance that I was already there,
the annoyance.
They were annoyed at. Yeah, they were annoyed about it. But you know what? If your dad brings you in and pats you on your back and says you did a great job, that's one thing. If your dad comes in and chews your butt a little bit, that's a whole different remembrance. So in a way, I felt like they were saying to me, honestly, this is exactly what I felt like. I felt like they were saying, we see you. What are you doing here? Get out of here. You weren't invited. Take this and leave. And that's the way I felt. So I think, all communications can't be pats on the back. And I really felt that I got a real direct communication from it, especially when I looked into the two Zeta beings' eyes. That's not describable. It was like reflecting your own soul consciousness in a way. I guess that's the only way I can say it. But they were most certainly. Now, how I got there, why I got there, were they call me? I have no idea. It's just some kind of contract that I made with them before I incarnated, and they were fulfilling their end. I guess I was fulfilling mine.
Just to witness them and have that in your mind that you saw them. Do you think there's any possibility that you've been taken since then?
Well, I don't have the direct kind of evidence that a lot of experiencers have. I don't have marks on my body. I don't have necessarily conscious recollection of any of those experiences. What I do have, though, is all my young childhood experiences of being terrorized by black clouds and mist. And in the last 3-4 years or so, all of a sudden I've started to have dream states where I was being put back in bed. And it was really kind of strange in that, and not at all fearful. I was just kind of floating into this bed that obviously wasn't my own. There was a window to the right of me and a wall to the left. The wall to the left all of a sudden becomes transparent. I see this floating Close Encounters of the Third Kind of craft turning over and over again. I look through the window and I got this direct beam of light, not searing, just great white light. And I've got these little beings rounding my feet with these long 4 little fingers, putting me back into the bed, just kind of sliding me down into the bed. And by the way, it tickles, and I didn't much care for it. And my wife comes in to wake me up in the morning, and she puts her hands on my feet. I jump through the roof. And it's all because of this, experience that I had with these grays that wasn't, again, fearful. But unless, I'm prepared for it, I can tell you to this day, I can feel those long, slender fingers just touching me around my feet. I see you, Jamie. I see you over there. And touching me around my feet and putting me back in bed. And it's creepy. It is really creepy. So, my wife knows better now anyway.
See, these are the things I wrote off as dreams for so long. After this camping trip I had, where I basically woke up with my boots off, which was a no-no. I went to sleep with my shoes on in case I had to run for it out in the middle of nowhere in Red River Gorge, Kentucky. I woke up with my shoes off, turned around the opposite way. My buddy had already left the tent. It was early morning, but I had woke up from this vivid dream of being floated up out of my tent and seeing, it's like in this part of it that I can't see their face. I can't see the face of the person that's telling me something in it. So it's not like I have a vivid Terry Lovelace experience, but it was a weird experience. And then after I got up and asked my friend, why did you see I was turned around? He goes, yeah, I don't know. You must have did that in your sleep. I don't know how though, because we shared a tent together. And he's like, I don't know how you didn't wake me up. In the midst of this cliff that we were on, we could see the mist over the forest. This huge bright light shot up through the mist up into the sky. We're like, what the heck? And then it was gone. That's that experience. Then things weird months later happened. The shadow person experience started, and that went on for 4 or 5 months, where this thing, I would see a black shadow figure, sometimes small ones, but I also saw the 7 foot, typical, what they say, kind of cone head or hat man kind of figure. I was being terrorized every night. This thing would rip me out of my body, take me on an astral plane to show me things, and it would be true. And I that experience I couldn't let go of. That's something I couldn't ignore because it was so traumatic, and it thought I was losing my mind. But reading Terry's book, and years later, now I wonder how that could be connected to that incident, because I also had dreams that I would say dreams of the gray alien. And I always wrote them off as dreams. And one of them was it coming up to my bed and grabbing my arm, and I felt its little fingers on my arm, and I recoil. I couldn't move, but I every part of my body recoiled from it, just like the shadow person experience when it would come and rip me out of my body. It was the same exact feeling. But I wrote it off as just, maybe that's my trauma from the shadow person experience. I'm just seeing gray aliens in my dreams. I don't know to this day. But after reading Terry's book, it started to make me think. And I talked to Terry, and I've talked to some other experiences who've had these kind of weird, not just the UFO experience and the abduction experience, but these shadow person experiences tied to their abduction. So, and that made me wonder even more. So it's something I'm exploring. It's like you said, I don't know where to start or begin with it, and figure out what's true and what's not, what's dream, what's, if I lived in 1968, I'd be a lot more okay, where would I get this from? But I live now. I've had plenty of fiction stuff to influence me. So I don't know. It's if it was real or not. That's the hardest thing.
Well, Jason, first of all, let's examine what you consider a dream. Because a dream is just really nothing more than an astral travel adventure. It's you're coming not out of spirit is not exactly the right word, but out of body is certainly the case, and that's what most dreams are. A lot of dreams are just maintenance dreams. You went to sleep worrying about the bill. Yeah, you went to sleep worrying about the bills, or your relationship with your girlfriend, whatever it is, and those are fine. Those have a place of you working out those things you didn't get to during the day, in your quote extra time. But most dream states are astral travels. They're very real experiences. Just because they don't happen here in what we call physical reality doesn't make them any less real. And you work out things there that you are interested in, that you are traveling around to see. that may have some connection with your physical reality the next day. But in a lot of ways, these are two completely separate things. You have your physical reality and you have your dream reality. And sometimes those things meet, but often they don't.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at your dream state as I hear you saying is, oh, it's a dream, think of it as a second state of reality. Actually, think of it as your first state of reality, because your second state is actually physical reality and going through the experiences that you set up for yourself. So you might try redefining how you look at dreams, and maybe that'll help you to get a better handle on what's going on with it.
Yeah, it was all those dreams. I know the way to look at them, dreams or if they're real. That's the question I had after this camping trip and a shadow person experience. I mean, I even woke up with a mark on my face, a perfect circle. It looked like somebody took a cigarette and burned it on my face. I mean, just weird stuff like that. And I mean, I even had one experience where I was like totally, I started out smoking then, and I had an experience where the aliens took me up, chided me for smoking, and put a thing down my throat and like cleared my lungs out. I'm not joking, people. I woke up from that going, what? And I did. I had all this congestion and it was gone the next day. And I still smoked for many years later. I didn't listen to the aliens, but I wrote it off as I didn't look at any of this.
By the way, that's not an uncommon experience.
Really?
With the Zeta. The Zetas have some kind of chakra energy thing going on. I don't understand it, but you'll see time and time again that you will see accounts of Zeta intervention where they actually put those daggum long 4 fingers of theirs down your throat.
Yes.
And work to clear the energy out of that. Don't ask me what's going on here. I mean, this is way beyond my ability when we start talking about energy dynamics and all those kind of things. I'm just recounting what I'm hearing from all of these Zeta encounters and Zeta contactees and Zeta humans. Is that one of the things the Zetas have done, and to several of them, is to clear up some condition, by putting their fingers down the throat and feeling that and doing some kind of energetic karma balancing or whatever the heck's going on there.
Interesting.
So, again, hey, you're a Zeta, get over it.
Well, it's interesting to say that because the only major surgery I had in my life was that my thyroid. I had to take out half my thyroid because there's something growing on my throat. This happened 5 years ago. They had to take part of my thyroid out. They thought, it wasn't cancerous, luckily. But yeah, like maybe they were trying to tell me something ahead of time. I don't know. But for me, they actually in that I remember that, you have these dreams. I write them up, but they were so vivid and so intense, just like the reincarnation dreams, or just like the shadow person experience. I knew right away they weren't dreams. Like I knew I was being terrorized by something. That would be ripping me, like literally something coming out evil, rip me out of my body and show me things. But the gray dreams, the only time it ever felt like that was when I got touched by one. I brought right back to that experience. But it's like that experience where I was taken and they were like showing me like what they were doing, like trying to calm me down as they were putting this thing down my throat and was filling up this fluid that was like washing out my lungs. And they're trying to show me in my mind, like they're like communicating with me telepathically, like, you need to stop. We're doing this. We're helping you. You need to stop smoking. I'm like, literally, that was a dream. Like my mom's like, yay, aliens. But like I said, again, I had that dream. I wrote it off the next day right away. Is that just a weird, crazy dream? Jason Bland's imagination of aliens, But yet I totally accepted the shadow person experience as not a dream. I was being attacked and this thing was getting at me that night because I was seeing it when I was wide awake. I think that's the real reason. I never saw the aliens when I've been awake. That I can remember if they wiped it out of my mind or screen memory. That's the hard part about it.
Yeah, it is a hard part, and but that's also the fun part, because if there wasn't a process to learning, if it didn't take some time and some effort and some digging down, because all you're really trying to find out is more about yourself, and that's all they're trying to tell you is there's a lot more of yourself than you realize, and we're just going to being extraterrestrial beings, we'll just kind of help you figure that out here. You mentioned something earlier about, why Earth? Why are they coming to Earth? And that's one that has perplexed me. And I don't think I have the whole answer, but I do think I have part of the answer. And part of the answer, and again, because I hear this time and time and time again, is that if they just wear this message out, this is an extremely special place. It's special here because it's extremely dense. It's special here because it's one of the few places physical reality can exist or be experienced. It's special because of the planet that we're on. It's special because of just an enormous number of things, but more often than not, I also hear it's special because, and this is why the extraterrestrials are so intimately interested in what we do. It's special because this is one of the few places that you can incarnate and come into a physical reality as we have one. So if you're a Zeta being or Pleiadian, or if you're some blah 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 from blah 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 blah, and you want to have an incarnation here, well, you gotta wait in line for a body. But if you can get yourself a container, this is one of the few places that you can do this. Now, when I say few places, I have no idea how many Earths like this there are out there in the universe. I imagine it's unlimited, but there is something about this particular place and the vibration level and the ability for the extraterrestrials to assimilate here, especially in an incarnation basis, that makes it extremely special. And I wish I had a better explanation for you than that. Otherwise, other than the fact that this is a gorgeous, beautiful planet we're on, and we all should be very thankful that we've chosen to incarnate here.
Well, that could be it, because, I mean, the Zetas, they're all on ships. Like I said, they're nomadic where they are. They don't have a planet. This place could be really special to them, We'll get into more of that. I have my own kind of little theory I want to run past you, too, about what could be going on. I'll throw that past you when we come back. We're going to go to commercial break, and we'll open up the phone lines when we come back. Our guest is Walter Rucker. He's a C5 experiencer. We're going to talk more. I want to get into the physical mediumship, the stuff that you study. He's not a physical medium. That was my bad posting that up there, but his expertise on that ability, and Leslie Flynn and his experiences with that. I'd like to get into that, too, because that's a whole otting topic. It's Paranormal Soup. We're getting a lot of stuff, a lot of rabbit holes. All right, guys, we'll be back with this short commercial break.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
This is an Apex Studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive.
Come
Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
For every Earthling who's ever dreamed of adventures beyond the stars comes the astonishing story of one who made it, Alex Rogan.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Sur and the Kodan Armada.
Of all the life forms in all the galaxies, one has been chosen to be the last starfighter. The Last Starfighter, with the film of the #1 hit Do They Know It's Christmas, the official Band-Aid story. In the West End and across London now, rated PG.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Vince, you said before you were waiting for a sign. What sign are you waiting for?
Gozer the Traveler. He will come in one of the pre-chosen forms. During the rectification of the Valdrani, the Traveler came as a large and moving torb. Then, during the third reconciliation of the last of the McKettrick supplicants, they chose a new form for him, that of a giant slore. Many Shubs and Zools knew what it was to be roasted in the depths of the slore that day, I can tell you.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. Call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID OOJBlandOO or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, our guest is Walter Rucker. He's a CE5 or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind experiencer, an expert on mediumship of all types with an emphasis on physical mediumship. I want to get into that tonight. It's something that's very fascinating me. People think of physical mediumship. I might not know what that is. There's different forms. Physical mediumship, a lot of skeptics are like, no, it was real. It is not real. It was made up by hoaxers in the early spiritual movement. No, but we'll go back to our episode of Gary Williams we had on. It was really interesting when we talked about the physical mediumship stuff that he experienced. It's something that's fascinating. The skull experiment. There's something that can be brought across from the other realm with physical mediumship, ectoplasm. So I had the Ghostbuster references in there. It's something I really want to get into tonight. But I'm still kind of on the alien thing because I really, really love getting Walter's perspective on this, especially the Zeta information. I've always felt I was an alien. Maybe I was an alien in a past life. I don't know. But you guys are hearing a little bit of my experiences tonight. I haven't shared all of it, but I'm still discovering what happened to me, and if I don't know if I'm an abductee. I don't know, but there's things that have happened to me. So whenever I get somebody on that's had some of these same experiences and that, I want to talk about it. I can't help it. I want to get into it. But you can talk. If you had experiences like this, you can call into the show. Rob gave out the numbers. I'll do it one more time. 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Skype ID OOJBland, OO or JBland Paranormal Soup. Call in, join the conversation, or ask a question of our guests. But let's go ahead and get back to the show. Thanks for hanging in there, Walter. Now, I was going to say I had my theory. Sometimes what I wonder, and then there are just theories, and I have no absolute beliefs in anything pretty much, except for very few things. But one of the theories I've always wondered, we talk about us being containers and different people maybe having alien past lives and that. Maybe why we're so important is that maybe we're an entertainment area. Reason I say that, there's a cartoon that I'm probably sure you haven't seen, but some people in my audience might have seen, is Rick and Morty. There's this episode where Rick takes his little grandson Morty to this alien arcade. They go all over the place. And in this alien arcade, there's this game where you can basically play. You put on this like virtual reality thing, and in less than like 30 seconds to a minute, you like live out this whole guy's life. Like literally live out this guy's whole life. It's hilarious. Morty gets on it and he ends up dying of from a bookcase falling on him when he's like 70 years old. And Rick has to outdo him. Like he does all. It's crazy, but maybe wonder. You wonder, could this all just be entertainment for an alien race that's done everything else? Could live in this life? Like right now, I'm going to be 41 Wednesday. But if you think about how, I just look at my kids and it's like, you have a dream, and dreams, you jump from one narrative to a next without noticing. Well, that's how life is, even. Because 1 minute my kid was like, crawling on the ground, and next thing you know, he's jumping around, and he's having full conversations with you. Like all the years go by like that. It's like time itself just goes from one narrative to another, and you miss the jumps. Sometimes I wonder if we're in that game that Rick and Morty were playing. Like I'm gonna wake up on an alien ship. They're gonna take the thing off. Like, so you got a score of 45. You did pretty poorly. This is what I wonder. If we're in some. I love the Matrix because of it. Because I feel like, are we living in some kind of simulation in some way?
Well, yeah, we are kind of.
GTA Earth. I mean.
Yeah, well, I understand. This is a really difficult place to, kind of figure out. But you're right, and the word simulation is one that I argue with, but I don't have a real problem with it. It's really more about manifestation. It really gets down to, Jason, I mean, very simply. You either believe that life is happening to you by some creator or God or whatever, it's just, aliens or just people that don't like you, they're happening to you, or it's happening through you. And if it's happening through you, then you're creating your physical reality. If it's happening to you, you're a victim. And then you get the feeling as if you're out of control and you have all these things happening. And what am I supposed to do about this? And look, I thoroughly understand that. And both ways of looking at reality are perfectly acceptable. It's just perfectly acceptable experiences. Some people may want to go through as victims. Some people may want to go through and assume that they can have some control over their physical reality and are responsible for it. So you kind of got to step back and say, well, where am I in this situation? Because if you assume that something is just kind of being forced down your throat, and that's sometimes it's what a simulation means, is that here is something that is being put upon you, like a simulation in a video game. When you boot the video game up, and by the way, I've never gone past Quake 2. So let's get that out. Let's get that out right now. All right. But I watch my 40-year-old adult sons play, and there is this there's this
predestination in a game.
Yeah,
There's a code.
yes.
You're going to go this is the storyline, right?
Right. This is the storyline, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that experience. I'm not condemning it. I'm not. I'm just saying that there's another side of that, and the other side of it is hey, physical reality is energy pushed through my consciousness, for a very simplistic way of doing this. I'm responsible for it. I set this up when I decided to incarnate here. This is what's going on. I still have free will. I can go this way and that way and chase different roads. But the bottom line is, it's my thing. And if it's my thing, then where's the fear?
Right.
And if it's not my thing, I certainly understand where the fear is.
Right.
But you're a Zeta. You just need to get over it.
We do have somebody waiting on the phone line already, so let me go.
All right, let's go.
He always has really good questions. My longtime caller and friend, Zach. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in.
All right. I just have one question, and I'll share my own contact experience.
Yeah.
Walter, so very nice to meet you, man.
Thank you, Zach.
My first question goes back to your first experience of dealing with the Greys. When you were having your experience, did the Greys give any kind of assumption, or could you really detect exactly what their agenda was when you encountered them at the location where you found them?
You there, Walker?
Not. This is a difficult question to answer. Not at the time that I was doing it. That's not even true either. At the time that I had the experience, it was, the feeling is that it was absolutely part of something that they had decided to be a part of in my experience. The problem is that I didn't get anything from them that said, "Oh, hey, it's great to hear from you. It's good to see you, and thanks for coming down." And I didn't get any of that. And it took me a long time to realize that, as I think I said before, that many times the extraterrestrial communication isn't right to the point that you want it to be. It's to the point that they think you need or you've agreed to. So it's a difficult thing, but that's a great question. It makes me think about it even more.
Okay, cool. So I did have two different encounters, actually, about a little bit over 10 years ago. And it wasn't with any Greys. Mine were more Nordic, if that's the best way to describe it. So I remember it was in April 2009. I remember going out into the backyard with my mom. She says, "Hey, I saw some lights up in the sky." And I look up and I see this bright white flash. And I'm like, "Oh, I see them too." And it happened twice again. I saw two bright white flashes up in the sky. And I didn't think much of it, so I went inside and I went to bed. Well, when I woke up the next morning, I was on my right side. I couldn't
I'm
move.
sorry. I didn't mean to laugh right into your thing, but this is so familiar. You know, people go outside, see a craft land in their backyard, meet the Zetas, they go back inside, they just go sleep.
Yep.
I know exactly. But anyway, I woke up, I was on my right side. I couldn't move. And I felt like somebody was like pressed their finger on my lower back, and I start vibrating. And I'm shaking, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I said, who's doing this? And I was able to move my head. I turn around, look over my shoulder. I see this tall being with long blonde hair in a silver jumpsuit, pale skin, but it's the being's eyes that really caught my attention because there were no pupils. It was just pure white, just looking at me. And I had difficulty speaking, but I was able to whisper out, who are you? And that's all I kept asking was, who are you? And it felt like a minute or two after that, I felt the shaking stop. I look over, this being is gone. And I thought to myself, what is going on? And I would, throughout that summer, I would just see like different things up in the sky and just different little things that would happen. But in August, a couple months later, I went out at night and I just looked up at the sky and I said, if you give me a second chance, please send somebody down to talk to me. And I see the bright white flash again. And that was it for me. I went back into bed. Woke up the next morning. Okay. I feel a bright flash in the room. I'm in that state to where you start to wake up in the morning and you're still a little bit drowsy, but you can't see everything too clearly. But I feel this. I feel like I'm being lifted up and I'm sitting up in my bed. I look over to my right. I see this entity. I can't see a face. It's all black silhouetted, but I see long blonde hair, a blue jumpsuit, and then I'm able to look to my left and I see two other figures, same color of skin, but they had brown jumpsuits. And I start talking to this entity, but the really unique thing about it is that I would ask a question in my head, but the entity would respond verbally to me, to my question. And at one point, I actually tried to stick my hand out and say, I'm Zach. And this being said, we know who you are. And I asked him, I said, why can't I move? And the entity responded by saying, you're difficult to handle. Okay, I get it. So I asked this entity, I said, what is your name? And he didn't give me a name. He gave me a number. He said 92. That was what really stuck out to me. But another question I had, and a lot of people find this really weird when I tell this story, but I asked this being, could I feel your hair? And so the entity, I could not see his face. It was still black silhouetted, but he leaned over and I was able to grab a piece of the hair between two of my fingers, and it felt like straw. It was pretty thick. And after some point, the entity said, we have to go. So the being got up, started walking away, but he just vanished right into thin air. And then I look over at the two other beings on the left side, and they start disappearing as well. And that's the last time that I've had any kind of contact experience that I can personally remember. So I take a look back, and I realize more that it wasn't my experience. It wasn't like some kind of spiritual awakening or anything like that. It was just more of validation, because I looked into the research, UFO activity and all that stuff ever since I was a teenager. And I think it was just more validation of, we're here, we know who you are, we exist. So just wanted to share that story with y'all.
Well, first of all, that was great. Thank you for that. It was well spoken and obviously sincere. You mentioned second chance, and that's a common thing. That's a common thing. If you look at extraterrestrial encounters and contacts and the like, and they always speak about, I didn't do it right the first time, come back and give me a second chance. And I always think that's kind of funny because in some ways these people are terrified, and yet in another way they're on their knees begging for, give me another try. Maybe I just kind of screwed this up. Or somehow you didn't make the connection that you would make and you felt guilty about it, or some felt guilty, or even the extraterrestrial may have missed it and maybe they felt guilty. They're trying to, get this second chance. The second chance thing is common, and I guess we ought to be thankful for it because, extraterrestrial communication and human communication, it just isn't really a snap. We're tough to get through. We're in an extremely low vibration, dense physical material universe here, and they have to really kind of burrow through all of that in order to make some kind of communication with us. So, I think second chance, and there probably are third chances and fourth chances that people just don't bring up and mention. But that's common, Zach, and it's good to hear a reaffirmation on that again. You mentioned the number 92, and I want to tell you two things about that that's funny. All right. The first one, you'll have no idea what it is. The second one, you probably do. I'll start with the second one. The second one is that you there is a lot of this numbering. I don't know why it is exactly, but a lot of the ETs go into this numbering thing. And I think it's sometimes because that's the best way that they can interrelate, because sometimes we pick kind of really strange and stupid names for things, and maybe a number like 92 or something is easy to remember and easy to connect with, and it has some kind of vibrational resonance with you. Okay? Now, let me tell you what is really interesting. I'm sitting in a motorhome. I'm in Southwest Florida. I'm in this motorhome because of the COVID problem. And my wife and I travel in it from time to time. And I rent the lot that I am on. And the lot that I am on is lot 92.
Well, it makes me wonder too, because I don't know if you've read any of the kind of like the Men in Black encounters. Sometimes they say the Men in Black refer to each other as numbers. Like they'll refer to one as a number, not a name. So that's what it made me think of when I've heard your story before, Zach.
Exactly, and this has actually been happening very recently though. But I've been going out at night to have a cigar, just relax, and I'll even look at the sky, and it doesn't happen every night, but now and then I do see those bright white flashes again. So I have a feeling that they still know that I'm out there, looking at them, and they still know that I exist. They know who I am.
Well, Zach, look, people will discount your contact as delusional or illusional or whatever. It doesn't really make any difference. The only really thing that matters is how do you feel about it? Is it a knowing, or is it a and when you have that knowing, it doesn't make a difference what anybody else says. When you have that kind of thing feeling, then that's when the outside negative kind of influence kind of trickle in and make you doubt yourself. So just look in there and see, if what you see isn't an illusion, isn't a fable, isn't a story, isn't just to get on here, because Jason's the most wonderful person in the world. It just isn't all that stuff. It's because you know it. If you know it, stand by it.
Been standing by it now for over 10 years, man.
Good for you.
It happened. I'm glad it happened. And I'll never recant it.
Well, thank you, Zach, for calling in and sharing that tonight.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much, Walter, for answering my question earlier and hearing my story. Love hearing everything that you're saying, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed your involvement here, and I learned a lot more from you. You'll probably ever learn from me.
All right. Have a great night, Zach.
All right, everybody. Have a great night.
Well, it sounds like they were doing energy work on him too, because he's the whole putting his hand on his back and feeling the vibration. It sounded like they were doing something like that with him.
Yeah, I thought there's a lot of Reiki influence, I think, going on there, and they have a different way of doing this. But again, when you start to talk to the Zeta contactees and the Zeta humans and whatnot, you'll find that the arts of Qigong and gosh, I hope I said that right, Reiki, and some of the other arts, especially the Chinese arts, are very much attached to what's going on in the extraterrestrial side, because there's a lot of similarity, because they're all energy work, as you said. It's just a matter of interpretation of of knowing how this works and how that works, and again, I'm not the guy to talk to about any of that.
Well, you talk about that they really have to like grudge through to make contact with us here if they're extra dimensional, like these maybe Nordic aliens were. This whole vibration thing, they exist on different dimensions or trying to come here, but makes you wonder if that's the whole point of like the reincarnation of an alien soul into a human container, is that's the only way they can experience this realm is by becoming a human. To come here in their physical form is really tough, but to really experience the human experience, this dense material, they got to be born as a human. Their soul has to go into a human. Maybe that's why you have different races. That maybe there's a you talk about, I liked when you said that, you got to wait in line to get a human body. Well, maybe there's a bunch of alien races here that have, millions of souls they're trying to like get a home for. We could be a way stop for a war that happened in an ancient past, before Earth existed. There's all these alien souls, and they, maybe we're a peace treaty here. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we're a prison planet, because we're, there seems to be a lot that they don't want us to know the big truth either. We got another caller though. I want to get to them. 386 area code. Who do we got?
Hey, Jason, it's Debbie.
Hey, Debbie. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks for having me. My experiences have not been in the physical, but more in during meditation and I guess astral traveling experiences. And I figured Walter would be the person that might be able to give me some insight on what I experienced. I had bought a Moldavite necklace about 2 years ago, and I had to like slowly bring it closer to me because it kind of made me nauseous and gave me headaches at first. So I kind of slowly brought it closer and closer to me. And I finally got to where I could wear it. And one night I decided to do like a meditation with it. And so I put it on my third eye, and I found this binaural beats meditation on YouTube to use with Moldavite. And I just laid there and was just, closing my eyes and relaxing. And all of a sudden it was like I flew up out of my body and I was flying through space, astral traveling, just like zipping really fast past like galaxies, planets, stars, just zooming through space. And then it was like I zoomed into Earth and zoomed back into my house and back into my body. And then all of a sudden I could see this, all I can call them is like a collective of different extraterrestrial and light beings. Some look similar to what Zach described as Nordic, with like long blonde hair. They kind of look like elf-like people with long blonde hair and blue eyes. And then there was two different types that were like blue-skinned, but they were different types. And then there were some that were like a cross between a lion and a person. And then there was like these really, really, really tall light beings, which I could... I felt to me they were angels, but I'm not sure that they were. And they did not like move their mouths to speak to me, but I was getting like telepathic communication from them that they were there as like a collective for me to help me in the future, to like guide me, and they were there to love and support me. I had nothing to be afraid of, but it was so shocking, and I was so not expecting anything like this. I like woke up out of my meditation, and I never saw like the whole collective together again. I have seen the one that resembles like the lion and the man combination, and I got a name from him, and that he was one of my Lyrian guides, but that's all I know so far. So I was wondering if Walter could give me any insight on what I experienced.
There's a lot there, Walter.
Well, did you have fun? Because if you're not having fun, it doesn't make any difference. No, but seriously, look, there's a lot of information there. I'm going to address a couple of things. First of all, I've taught OBE, and the idea of the Moldavite and the meditation together. The Moldavite stuff is interesting. It's highly energetic, if you believe it to be so, and it does have properties to it that have been connected with out-of-body experiences. Now, with that said, what has to happen in out-of-body experiences, there has to be an up vibration that you can almost assuredly feel. Sometimes it pops out quickly and you kind of miss it, but mostly you'll feel some kind of change in you, and I call that change a vibratory change. For me, when I do out-of-body experiences, I vibrate like a locomotive. I mean, it's everything I can do to keep myself focused on trying to pop out because the vibrations are so strong. So,
I get them really, really, really strong in my legs, all the way down my legs, from like my feet all the way up to my hips, but I don't feel it in my upper body so much. But I mean, I literally, since that meditation happened, I get like vibrations in my legs a lot, and it never happened before that meditation.
Yeah,
but it happens all the time now.
But what happens is, you're learning. You had this combination of mineral energetics and belief and all this other stuff going on, and you had a great experience and you learned from it. And when you learn, you get a little bit better at doing the same thing. Otherwise, what are you learning about? So yeah, you'll have that. Maybe down the road you'll have full body type of vibrations, and trust me, they can be disconcerting on the front end. I fought with it myself for quite a while to get to understand that I wasn't going to die from this, and the worst thing that was going to happen is I would stop vibrating, and the best thing would happen is I'd pop out and have a really good fun time. So I hear where you're coming from, and yes,
I actually enjoy it because I have chronic nerve pain throughout my entire body, and when I get those vibrations, it stops the nerve pain in my low back down to my feet. It goes away while the vibrations are there. So I actually enjoy it when it happens. It's never been scary to me. It was just, I wasn't expecting that to happen, and it's been interesting that it's continued to happen since.
Yeah, and look, I have the same thing. I have some low back problems, and I find that one of the greatest things about the meditative out-of-body experience that where you just kind of get an up vibration, but you don't really pop out. It's a little difficult to describe. It's sort of like hypnagogic awakening or something, but the pain goes away. The pain absolutely goes away, and so I hear you, and that's, this is some of the vibratory medicine that I think, I know that we're going to get into one of these days. I hopefully sooner than later. You have an amazing thing that you're talking about there. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's something that I've mentioned it a few times, but I've never come out and talked to anybody about it because I didn't fully understand it. I'm not afraid, and I had a wonderful time. I was just shocked to see them, and I've been developing my own gifts over the years, but I want them to come back. I want to have more experiences with like the whole collective, and I look forward to it happening. It was just interesting how it happened because I wasn't planning on it happening. It just happened, and it just kind of blew my mind. I was so shocked that I shocked myself right out of the meditation, and I was really upset because I didn't want to be out of the meditation, but it was my first time experiencing anything like that, and I just I jumped and I came out, and so I hope that I can get back with them again. It was really a great and amazing experience.
Well, if it's right, you will, and if it isn't,
I hope
it won't make any difference. Move on.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
You too, Debbie. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Like hers, that sounds like a positive experience. Zach sounds like a positive experience. My experience, I don't know. When the gray alien touched me in that one vision, dream, whatever it was, that was not positive. It made me feel like the whole shadow person experience, which wasn't positive. By the way, I've had out-of-body experiences during the shadow person. They were very, it would come and it ripped me out of my body. It felt like it was just ripping me out of my body and laugh. It had this evil laugh while it would do it. And it took and showed me things. Like one of the things I remember, it showed me my girlfriend at the time kissing this other guy in a car. And later on, she could confirm me everything I saw, where it happened exactly. So I totally believe in people in astral travel, but from my experience was negative, very negative. Like this thing took me and showed me things I did not like. It knew my worst insecurities, the shadow person, so I have like a little bit of a fear of out of body experiences after that. I haven't tried to when I was younger, I would try to astral travel. I was like totally into trying it, but after I was like 18 when this happened, it's one of the things I haven't totally, out of all the paranormal things I get into, I haven't done the out of body experience or try to do it because I'm afraid it's going to bring me back to that whole shadow person experience.
Well, look, I understand where you come from. I mean, I'm not trying to make negative comment, but the flip side of what you're saying is that is it really such a bad thing to face your worst fears? And I would suggest to you it's not. Yeah. And I'm suggesting to you, however you got there, whether by Zeta or by your own consciousness or that, is a really good thing, because my generation grew up with running away from all of their fears. And so it took my generation, and very few of us, to understand that you're running away from nothing. There's nothing to be fearful of, number one. Number two is you got to face your fears if you're going to have any education. And running away is no education. So again, I think you're really on the right track with what you're doing. And this is
I've tried a couple times to do meditations where I do the out of body experience, and I it's like right when it's about to happen. Yeah. I feel like when it happen, I get that whole experience comes back to me, the shadow person, and I don't do it. It's the feeling of being coming out of my body after what happened to me that just kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, look, I understand. The out of body experience has, for most people, a transition point where there is fear involved. In my case, it's the extreme vibration that makes me scared.
Yeah,
makes me fearful. Yours is another, and that's part of the process. That's part of the fun of it.
That vibration you described, though, I felt that, and I felt that when I've tried. That brings me right back to what this shadow person thing would do. It would hover over my body, and I'd feel that vibration, and it and out.
Oh, I know.
And then I'm on this, and so that's why every time the few times I've tried to okay, I'm going to try to do this astral projection, or I'm going to try to do an out of body experience. I'm like, nope, not do it. I start to feel it, and I get down on that, and I literally wake up from it because it freaks me out.
Well, it's a learning process, and I'm not telling you have to do this. It's your personal choice whether you want to continue down that road. And I've had people that I've taught OBE to that just never got there. I've had people that have had these high vibrational experiences, what they call negative or positive. Really doesn't make a difference. It's something that prevents them from popping out in their head.
Yeah.
It prevents them from popping out. So all I'm saying to you is that you can reframe that a bit.
Yeah,
You can
no.
look at it in a
want to.
different way. And if you care to continue with it, then just say to yourself, okay, this is going to happen. Let's get ready for it. And let's see if we can't make something positive out of this, including just getting beyond this. Because, Jason, you know as well as I do, it's all a bunch of crap anyway. There's nothing to be afraid of up out there. There are no boogeymen. There are no, evil
I didn't tell you
alien.
how my experience ended, Walter. I didn't tell you how my experience ended with the shadow person experience. This is why. Okay, it got to a point where I tried to fight this thing off. It would paralyze me to rip me off my body, and I felt I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you. And when I was trying to fight it, the last time I really had anything to do with this thing, it actually physically didn't rip me out of my body. I think it was trying to, but levitated my body up off my bed, so up to where I could go. I did it 3 times. It lifted me up, and it's this evil laugh I could hear in my head. I even felt my nose hit the little prickly things on my ceiling, and then it dropped me down. It would drop me down. It did that 3 times until I finally said, "God, please, God, help me!" And there was a bright flash of light, and this thing screeched, and I saw an elderly person step through that light. That later on, this is a short story I'm making here because I don't want to get into all of it, but I saw somebody who looked like my great grandfather, and he kind of looked at me like, you messed with the wrong things. Cause I this is a long story. It's a whole story. You can go read the story, people. Mike Ricker's Ghost Chronicles Volume 2, I believe. That's his book. I put it all in there, 50-page story, what I experienced, and I'm telling you, I know I was physically levitated off my bed. I felt myself bounce off that bed. The 3rd time I bounced off that bed, hit the ground. I saw that flash of light, and this thing screech up. It physically touched me. It physically moved me. And if it could do that, it could hurt me. So that's where, but honestly, I felt like God intervened there. Something saved me that night. And I never had it again. But it set me on a path of believing and knowing that there's a dark side. There are dark entities. This thing was not up to good. I don't feel like it was trying to bring me on any spiritual journey. It wanted me to go insane. Is what I felt, and it was feeding off of it.
Yeah, look, there's no question that there are what we would consider dark entities out there. There, every coin's got 2 sides, right? And that includes spirit communications, the extraterrestrials. I don't care what entities or beings that you're talking about. There's always going to be a dark side to that, and that's part of the reason that we're in physical reality is because here we're able to separate because we feel separate from God. We feel separate from source. We're able to separate into things we call good and evil, positive and negative, yin yang, whatever you want to call it. And by doing that, because the way we're, have to navigate physical reality, we're able to do comparisons of things. So you can say, well, this is something over here that's really horrific. And over here is something that's not so horrific. In other words, the same point of view of the same thing. Let's say you have an extraterrestrial contact, okay? Well, some people say, oh, it's the most horrible thing that ever happened to me. Okay, well, that's one point of view. It's valid. The other may say, well, gosh, that was really kind of fun. I don't know what it was, but, it seemed like a positive thing. That's the other. And you can stand in the middle and make a choice between which of these 2 things that you want to be part of your belief system. In other words, that's your free will. And you have those choices to make, and those choices are then part of, what you believe. So if you choose, well, this is a really negative thing or a bad thing, or it scared me or whatever, and I'm just saying that's a very legitimate point of view. Then another way of looking at it is that I'm alive, I'm smarter, I'm running this show. I've got things to talk about.
Tons of people have never seen. I don't think people can say they've been levitated up off their bed. Not that that's a good thing.
The special experiences and all that. So neither of those opinions or those reflections are invalid. But what it does allow you to do, which is what the greatest thing about processes in physical reality is, it allows you to sit kind of in the middle of them and go, well, I kind of like that better, or I kind of like this idea better, or I kind of like some melding of it better. And I sense you're kind of going through that whole thing right now, is you're trying to figure out this was some kind of negative stuff, but look at all these positive things that came out of this, and how do I make sense of all this? Welcome to the club, bud, because this is this is the way it works. And if it wasn't for if we just got the answers, there'd be no reason to come here. It's the thinking and the processes and the going through this and the experiences and the things that you're going through and I'm going through and this conversation you're going through that makes this whole thing so damn much fun.
Well, this show exists because of that shut up person experience.
Yes, it does.
Because at that time, I wouldn't talk to anybody hardly about it. There was 2 other people that were involved in this experience that I did talk to because they were having the same experiences. But I wouldn't tell my mom. She thought I was suicidal and didn't know why. And I didn't want to tell people because I'm like, they're going to put me in a loony bin. Nobody's going to believe this. Nobody's going to believe it. It took me years before I was comfortable to talk about it. Now I'm at the point where, doing the show and all that, I'm like, I don't care what you believe. I don't care if you think I'm a liar. I don't care if you don't believe it. I know my experience. You can piss off if you don't believe it. I know my experience. I know what happened to me. I'm done hiding from it anymore, and I'll talk about it. But there was a long time where I wouldn't, because again, who's going to believe this crazy experience? I mean, it was nuts. I don't even know how to quantify it. I don't even know what it was. I have no way. People are, oh, it's a demon. I don't know if it was a demon. I don't know what demons are. I mean, not to say that I don't believe they exist, but everything could be semantics. You demon, potato, angel, alien. That's the thing that perplexes me. I don't know what I experienced. We got somebody else waiting on the line here, and I want to get to her before we get from commercial break. We got Joyce on the line. How you doing tonight, Joyce?
I'm doing okay.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, I've been listening to all this stuff, and I've had my own experiences with outer body experiences myself. And I remember when I was really young, and I used to get those vibrations. It felt like my body was in electric shock.
Yeah.
It was just the weirdest feeling. And then I could roll over and get out of myself. I've done it quite a few times. I can't do it now for some reason, but I used to do it when I was younger. And I finally told my mom about it because I actually did some experiments to see if I was really outside of myself. My mom says, okay, I'm going to see whether this is true or not. And she said, okay, you go into your brother's room and go to sleep, because I didn't have my bed at the time. It's a long story on that. And she says, I'm going to put down a card, and I want you to tell me what card it is, a playing card. So I went to sleep, and I felt the vibrations, and I got out, and I walked into her room, and I looked at the card. And I think it was a heart. I don't remember exactly now, but I came back and I said, no, I'm going to do it again to make sure this is true. And I rolled out again, and I came back into her room, and I looked again, and it had changed. And I freaked out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe this isn't real. So I came back, I went back again, and I did it a third time, and the card changed again. And then I got up, and I was really devastated about it. I went to my mom's room, and my mom says, well, what cards did you see? Or what card did you see? And I said, well, I saw a heart, I saw a diamond, and I saw clubs. And she said, oh my gosh. And I said, what? She says, what I kept doing was I kept changing the cards, and you named them all.
I like your mom.
That actually happened.
I really like your mom, Joyce. Very cool.
That was just amazing. So I knew I was on the right path, that I was actually doing this. And the other experience I've had was when I was about to get married, and it was going to be my wedding day. I stayed at somebody's house. We have what they call a little party for the bride. And I had this experience where I went to my husband where he was staying, and I saw him walking, and he was actually I couldn't believe it. It was on the undershirt and a pair of shorts. And he was walking back to the bed and going into the bed. And the next day, I told him about it because I had no idea if he wore pajamas, if he wore what he wore. And he said to me, "Oh, you said you saw me." I said, "I guess I did." Because he was wearing what I told him exactly what he was wearing. And he had gotten up that night to go to the bathroom and go back to bed. And I caught him.
Well,
I've been out about 50 times. I used to write a journal about all the times I've been out. There's a book his name's Robert Monroe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody told me to read his book. You familiar with him?
Yeah. Yeah, he is probably. Go ahead.
A friend of mine, because I was telling you, I was so scared to tell my experience to somebody about what was going on, and I finally just cracked, and I told a friend, and she happened to know this book, and I started reading it, and I started not being afraid of the electric shock feeling. That bothered me in the beginning. It felt like a motorboat was in my head. And it would just be really loud. And then all of a sudden the vibrations would go up and down my body. And then faster and faster and faster. And the faster it went, then I was able to roll out and go places and do things. So that's my experience. I just found it very fascinating listening to everybody else's experiences as well.
Well, hey, Joyce, I want to get it before we, because we'll go to commercial. When we come back from this other commercial break, we got 5 minutes before we go. I definitely want to get into your physical mediumship stuff before we get out of this, because Joyce is written a book about her experiences with an entity, a famous one, kind of pretty much. And I think you need to listen to his stuff on physical mediumship too, because I think you have some of that, at least the mediumship abilities.
I do?
Well, because you communicate with the spirit.
Yeah, I do.
And you wrote a whole book
Yeah.
about this experience, this communication. Sorry, I had to interject that in there. Go ahead, Walter. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Do we have a few minutes? I'd like to respond.
We got 5 minutes before break. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I need 10. But anyway, Joyce, look, this idea of out of body experiences, we have a tendency to say, okay, we're laying here, and then we pop out, we fly around the room, or we go to see our neighbors or whatever, and and then we come back. It seems, we have that kind of linear look at this. The truth of the matter is the out of body experience is a very complex thing. For instance, I had an out of body experience where I went through all the electric shock that you talk about, all that high vibration. And I was trying to resist quitting because it was disconcerting. And all of a sudden it stopped. And I thought, oh, damn it, I missed my OBE here. And what that means for me is that the rest of the day I have a slight tremor in one or both of my hands. The vibrations continue through the rest of the day. And so I get up out of the bed or wherever I happen to be and walk through the living room, go outside, lay down the grass that I didn't have because I didn't have grass in Florida. It was middle of the summer. It was all burned up. And I look up and a couple of strange people come up and start talking kind of weird things through me. And I realized that I didn't miss my OBE. I just thought I missed it. And here I was out of the body having this, experience. And I'm telling you that's the complexity of the out of body thing. All of what you're telling me, especially the rollover part of it, that's a very common technique that says when you feel that you're hitting that vibratory level where you have to make a decision. I think most of us, I still have to make a decision whether I'm going to go forward and go out of the body. And that rollover technique's a really good one. It doesn't work for me, but I can tell you it works for a lot of people, and I understand exactly where you're coming from and why it works for you. The experiment that you had with going out of the body and going in and looking at cards and coming up with different card selections and all that kind of stuff. That's very common. It's very common. In my experience, I was going out of body very early on in my early teens, even earlier than that, come to think of it. But I'd fly around my neighborhood and I'd watch my fellow neighbors. And some of them were teammates and classmates of mine. And they would be playing this or that or whatever and whatnot. And I'd come back, and the next day I'd be talking to them about it. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I saw y'all doing this or that or the other." They'd look at me like I was out of my mind. And I had no idea that they didn't know that I was watching them, much less that they, I mean, it was just so foreign. It was just, it was not, I just would kind of go, uh-oh, this is not good. Something's not right here. And I would just, eventually, honestly, it cost me many friendships, youthful friendships, come and go anyway. But when I got weird like that, most of my neighborhood friends didn't have anything to do with me anymore.
I know that feeling.
I never had that problem. Thank goodness. I have told other people about it. I'm not, what do they call it? I'm more outspoken now about some of my experiences, is because, I mean, whether they believe in it or not, I know they have.
Exactly.
They're true.
Yeah. It's about the knowing. Yeah. And once you have the knowing, it doesn't make a difference, really. And that's the difference between thinking you know and knowing. If you think you know, then other opinions and thoughts and actions about what you know affect you. If you just really know, they don't affect you anymore.
It's like I always tell people, as a paranormal investigator, you know, with what's going on in their home or they're having entities or that, I say, what does your gut tell you about it? What do you if you just said right now what you think you know inside what it is, what's going on? I always want to get that answer, because there's always, I think, something in us that tells us what these experiences are. We just have to hear it, listen to it. Well, Joyce, thank you so much for calling in.
Well, thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Take care. Okay, bye-bye.
But yeah, you know, I always tell people, what do you, just throw out all the other BS and tell me what you think is, you know, deep in your gut. What's your feeling that's going on? And I try to tell myself that. I try to, like, my experience is, what do you think it is? Unknowing. I like that you put that out, because I feel like something in us, we do know a lot of times, a lot more than what we say we know is going on. It's in there. It's in here. We know what's going on a little bit. There's something to it. You know, I just got
a lot of people have denial too.
Yeah. We got to go to our last
commercial break from somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. That it gives you confirmation. All right, we're gonna go to last commercial break, and we'll come back where I want to get into your Leslie Flint, because that's really interesting. The physical mediumship. I really want to get into that. I know we only got a half hour left, but I really want to get it. I don't want to not touch upon that, because that's so interesting. All right, guys, we'll be back, and the phone lines will still be open if you want to call in, and we'll give those numbers out when we come back from the commercial break. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Phantasm, the film that puts the fun in funeral. And as for a fiendish story, it does have a burial plot. Come prepared to scream, because if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm from Avco Embassy Pictures. Rated R under 17, not admitted without parent.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
This fall, a new hard-hitting police drama is coming to Friday night. He was a well-to-do cop transferred to a troubled precinct downtown. His new partner is a space traveler with a passion for justice. It's Yuppie and the Alien.
Look, you might vaporize dissidents in Alpha Centauri, but in this precinct, we do it by the book.
I'm so terribly sorry, Captain.
Googa, I'm sorry. Don't miss this one-of-a-kind police drama. They're fighting crime the hard way, in designer clothes, with $250,000 sports car and a UFO.
Partner, let's go cruise in the car and look moody.
One tough downtown precinct, two outsiders doing things their way. Yuppie and the Alien on VBC.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion at call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Suite. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight we've been talking to Walter Rucker. I know, see, some people are like, you're finally going to get to talk to him about physical mediumship. I know, I can't help it. You get into the alien thing, I'm going to go right down that rabbit hole for quite a bit because it's something I'm really interested in lately. But I do want to get into that. One of the things he said, I read in his bio that he is expert on Leslie Flynn. He was one of the last, I think, physical mediums that did like the ectoplasm and the direct voice communication. I remember some of the famous people he talked to. Winston Churchill, I think. It's something that's fascinating is physical mediumship. A lot of skeptics have put it down over the years, saying it was all fake and that. I don't know. I've had guests on that have experienced these things and seen it. Remember Gary Williams, the psychic? He got involved with some people who were involved in physical mediumship early in his life. He had some incredible stories of meeting Carl Jung in physical mediumship. There's people who have had incredible experiences with it. So I want to get into that tonight. The phone lines are still open. Call in if you want to share your own experience or have a question for our guests. But let's go ahead and get back to the show. So how did you get involved with studying Leslie Flint? Or, I mean, did you meet him? He died in the 90s, I think, 1990s?
Yeah, early 90s. It was really kind of a strange situation. I was developing software for the military and later on for military intelligence. And during that development process, I had contacts with some folks that wanted me to, because I was moving to Florida, it was wanting me to attend seances and report back on what was going on. I didn't really know a whole heck of a lot about this. This was 1995, 96, 97, so and whatnot. It kind of blew it off and just didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. And then when I moved to Florida, I was across the peninsula, about 100 miles from a place that has a place that sponsors a lot of physical mediums, and we have physical mediumship seances going on a regular basis there. Now, the Leslie Flint thing was because I got tickled about what physical mediumship was. Because, I mean, honestly, I had never heard of any of this stuff before. I knew about psychics and, mental mediums, those that connect you between your dead that are passed over and yourself, and they are the bridge between. I understand all that, but I never understood physical mediumship. So, in particular, Leslie Flint was the most studied, exonerated, and researched physical medium, even to this date, of all time. So there was not really a question about whether physical mediumship through Leslie Flint was real or not. The question is what do you do with the information? Now, let me step back a little bit. Leslie Flint was an ordinary human being living over in the UK and various other places. And he found that there were times when he could sit and there would become voices in the air. And later on, these voices identified themselves as spirits. And then he developed the ability, not consciously, I think, but with spirit cooperation, he developed the ability to make an ectoplasmic voice box.
Right.
That would sound like the spirit coming through him to the sitters or the audience that was there to experience that communication. This ectoplasmic voice box is not the ectoplasm of the Ghostbusters. This is a living organism. It emanated from his carotid artery. It's been told, but it came from the side of his neck. It sat on his shoulder.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures. The people said they
Yes.
would take a picture of it.
And then spirit could speak through that voice box in at least as close of a tone, if not a perfect a tone, as they would be had he had been alive. So this was leading evidentiality to the fact that consciousness lives on. We die physically. We have a body that needs to be taken care of, but the rest of us move on into our next spiritual experience. And so that was the whole idea of why Leslie Flint, and called a physical medium, because he had a physical manifestation of spirit and spirit action in the ectoplasmic voice box. This is why he's considered, and I still think he is, the most believable and easily studyable physical medium when it comes to understanding the continuity of life post-mortem.
Well, I've never dug deep into Leslie Flint, but I know of him, and I've heard of it. And I've always been really interested in like, because in the early 1900s there was a kind of like a little explosion of kind of seances and physical mediumship that was happening. There was fakery and all that, but there's a lot of people wonder what, some of it wasn't fake. What if there was something happening? What I always found interesting with the Leslie Flint story is the ectoplasm voice box, because we do stuff. We do what we call ITC, or instrumental transcommunication. We do spirit box stuff. We do it live on the show, and people call in. I was on Heather Wade's show twice, and we've had some amazing results doing it just on her show of callers calling in. And that we've theorized that they're able to take any kind of audio and manipulate it to make it a voice. They just need something. I found that with EVPs that I've recorded, electronic voice phenomenon, that, they seem to reverberate off our own voices. The best EVPs I've gotten between us talking, like they need some kind of audio to manipulate. With the ectoplasmic voice box, it's the same. It seems like it's pointing the same kind of direction. Like it has to make something physical here, like, because they don't have a voice box. Obviously, they're dead. They got to make something physical here to be able to speak or talk. We've had a voice come through that didn't even come from the ghost box. Because the ghost box had reverb and echo. We could tell what the ghost box sounded like. One time we had a voice come through and say several things right into the direct audio of the show. And what is that? That's almost like a digital seance is what we call it, because there's all of us here, in the panel, and then there's everybody in the chat room. There's the callers. We're all focused in on this communication. That's why there's something fascinating about this phenomenon.
Yeah. Again, this is a complex subject, because Leslie Flint's mediumship required that he have this ectoplasmic voice box sitting on his shoulder. If you've ever seen the picture, I think you have, it really looks like a larynx. I mean, it's stunningly modeled after that. But with the same thing, most physical seances that I have been in, where the modern, what I call the modern physical mediums, there's only about 4 of them: Kai Mugi, Warren Kaler, David Thompson, Scott Mulligan, maybe 1 or 2 others. But they're the only ones that internationally travel. And when they sit in seance in a darkened thing, they don't put out any kind of ectoplasmic voice box apparatus.
Right. Spirit
voices literally just come out of the air. Now, there is a concern that because we're in a darkened environment, I mean, dark like you can't see your hand in front of your face kind of thing, occasionally lit with candles or a little light torch or something, but for the most part in dark, that these voices that seem to come out of the air, and I mean literally on one side of the room, the other side of the room, behind you, in front of you, wherever they happen to come from, could still be ectoplasmic voice box extensions, because you can't see that there aren't. So there's a question of what's going on actually in the physical mediumship seance when it comes to voices. Is it Leslie Flint type, or is it just true spirits out of the air? And there's no way that that's going to be resolved until we're able to bring light into the seance room, at least better than the red light we've been able to, and see if we can see any of these ectoplasmic structures happening in the very same way they happened to Leslie Flint on his shoulder, where we could see them in seance.
Was it Robin McCoy? Oh, from the Skull Experiment. I almost got him on the show, but it's hard for him time-wise, he told me, to come on a Sunday night this late over in the UK. But from the Skull Experiment, I've watched it more than once. I'll admit that. People have probably watched it like several times. I'm just fascinated by that because, in that they did the like weekly meeting. They all, these mediums, physical mediums, meeting in the dark. And the stuff that they got, I mean, it's out of this world stuff. I mean, the airports, the writing on film, Thomas Edison coming through. I mean, if you've never seen the Skull Experiment, people, have you not been watching my show? Go watch the Skull Experiment. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, and they brought scientists in, and then they even took this to other people's houses. Later on, other people had these, where they see the table spinning, like, and this stuff. It's like by now we're in the modern century. We should be able to, figure this out. Is this fakery or whatever? Because back in the 1900s, people were doing some fakery stuff. They were, they were definitely faking some stuff in these seances. But Skull Experiment and the stuff that happened afterwards, it's just, I don't know. It impressed a lot of people who've seen it, been a part of that, and there's something there.
Yeah, Robin Foy really has done an amazing job with that, and he's really done an amazing job with all of that. And he's back. Actually, he's back trying to start up a second place, much like his Skull Basement. It was in his basement in his house. Yeah. He's trying to raise the funds for it. And I hope he's very successful because he's been he's been one of the most. The Skull Experiment thing. You're absolutely right. If after you listen to me, please go watch it. But the Skull Experiments are amazing evidential stuff. And one of the things that happened that kind of shut it down is that one of the problems the Skull people had, Robin and his group, there was a couple of PhD doctors involved there as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these weren't just a bunch of, people smoking dope and going down in his basement and having a big time.
Man, look at the spirits. No.
Yeah, really. No, that's not what happened here. So they go down, but what kind of shut the whole thing down is that the portal, the communication that they opened, apparently, since they really didn't understand how to control it with their thoughts and intentions and the like, kind of broadened out, and they started getting extraterrestrials coming in.
Right.
And the ETs coming in kind of blew the whole thing up because they just couldn't take that high vibratory existence, and they thought they were potentially opening up for evil aliens, which they may or may not have been. But the Skull Experiments got in my mind. Yeah, the Skull Experiments got shut down for almost the weirdest reason, because they were talking about, they were looking for spirit, they were looking for communication with the afterlife and all that. That's whole idea behind all this the sitting and whatnot, and it all of a sudden they get shut down by ETs.
Well, think about this. There's the Thal Society during with Hitler and the Nazis. And a lot of people have said that they were getting contact with ETs, and they were getting even some of their technology from these seances, or these what do you want to call it? I guess channeling of these aliens, the Thal Society. Obviously, if he gave weapons to Nazis, it could be a bad thing, opening up the doorway. So the ETs might have shut this down. There might be other ETs out there like, no, you're going to get something you're not going to like. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what's going on.
I got to get Rob on the show somehow. Like, come on, dude, just get a good sleep before,
tough interview. But it's not this or that. It's this and that. It's yes, there are ETs doing this, or yes, we have these. It's all of those things kind of work together in a way that we really don't understand. But you can't limit yourself to any particular set of beliefs on how these things work, because there are many more ETs than we have beliefs. I can guarantee you that, and the way they communicate and work with us. And while they jumped into the skull experiment and shut it down, I'm not so certain that that's exactly what happened. When I've looked at the skull, and I've had this conversation with Rob, and I had to look at the skull experiment, I think they just freaked out. I think if they had worked through their fear and whatnot, that they'd have found out on the other side these weren't evil entities trying to, screw with their heads. These were evil. These were just entities that were trying to make a communication on the best level that they can.
But you know what? Fear is the way to survive sometimes, because if you hear the bear growl in the dark cave, it might not be a cuddly, huggy bear in there. It might be one that's going to eat your face. I'm saying they might have a good reason to have a little fear, and might have been a good reason to shut it down. I mean, as a paranormal investigator, I've run across people who've done nothing like the skull experiment, and like stuff's gone crazy in their home, and they're having horrible negative experiences from doing a little bit of Ouija board, or even just a little bit of spirit box. Just opening up that doorway just a teeny bit, and something pushes its way through. So there can be a danger.
Well, yes.
You let clues through from H.P. Lovecraft or something. I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot of fiction that tells you, hey.
Sometimes things scare you or want to be negative and make you scared so that you don't learn the answers and you don't continue.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie.
Like the bear growling is to have you back off to protect the baby. Maybe it is a cuddly bear.
But ultimately, you have to step back and say, well, I'm an immortal being or I'm not. And if I'm an immortal being, I mean, what the hell difference does it make if the bear eats me? I mean, I'm just going to move on to something else. I mean, that sounds simplistic, but it's actually the one of the choices you have to make.
But but this is something he's probably going to try to pick up again. Like, all right, we're going to try to get back to that point. I mean, it seemed like it took them a lot of work to get to the point that they did, where they're having all the. I mean, one of the things that interested me the most about that was like Thomas Edison communicating with them on the other side. Like he's on the other side trying to figure out a way to communicate with us. I find that blows my mind, completely fascinating. With Leslie Flint, he communicated with some very famous people that seemed to really want to talk and get heard. That's just fascinating.
Yeah, the Flint thing, by the way, if you'll go back and listen to the recordings, it's amazing how much they sound like themselves. Churchill in particular, I've had some, paranormal experiences with, some physical mediumship experiences with. Rudolph Valentino, who was Leslie Flint. I was
trying to remember.
Yeah, he used to be the usher at Valentino movies, and so he saw Valentino all the time. He was a big fan of his, and Valentino comes through, and I think he's got 10 or 12 recordings of Valentino coming through in his mediumship. I mean, it's really a lot of fun stuff, and at some point you just say, okay, you gotta have to throw your hands up.
Didn't Rudolph Valentino have a family member or somebody that sat in with him on a reading? I can't remember. I thought.
Yeah, Valentino had frequently. Matter of fact, he had a member sitting in that were part of his family that had requested the seance. This wasn't spontaneous. It was something that.
But that they recognized him.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you have to be very careful about this recognition thing, because it's really not about, oh gosh, that sounds like Dad, as much as is, oh gosh, that's what Dad would say. That this resonates with me, not necessarily on the audio level. There's nothing wrong with that. If it sounds like Rudolph Valentino, it is Rudolph, that's great. But really, it's about what's the message here? What exactly are we trying to get accomplished here? And ultimately, all of the physical mediumship, and especially Leslie Flint, it was about proving the continuity of life. And so if the audio sounded good, great. And if the message sounded good, that's greater, because those are the things that were true to come true. And I say this not only to defend Leslie Flint, but also to say that he had many individuals come through who said they were XYZ, who didn't really particularly sound like XYZ. They say, I'm this famous person. They really, Chopin was one. that didn't really kind of sound like him. Because, we had very little information on Chopin, but what little we have, it didn't sound like him. But the bottom line was, I think part of that experience is that you have to say, okay, I mean, if you've got to sound like grandma every time, or you got to sound like, Martin Luther King or Jim Morrison or whatever, in order to convince me, then, you're kind of missing the point. And the point is that this is happening. There are enough information out there that you can match up if you need audio matchups, but pay attention to what we're saying here. And that's where the greater truth is.
Well, that's what it is like in ITC. I have to explain when I do my show, and I've been on other shows and done it, that it can manipulate any audio to make a voice. It'll say something, but it's about what's the meaning. That's the most important part, because most of the time it doesn't sound like the person. It's using different audio. It's not going to sound like their voice, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it comes through and it's their voice. I've got both, but it's like they need something. They need a voice box. That's what I always found interesting about Leslie Flint, is that they do need something to manifest their audio here for us to hear it.
Yeah, they do. Now, let me walk you through very, very quickly what a modern physical mediumship seance looks like. This will be very quick. There are so many chairs, 12, 15, up to 40 chairs sitting in a horseshoe. There's a cabinet, which is a black curtained off area. There's Leslie right there with his ectoplasmic voice box on his shoulder. You go into the seance room. The physical medium gives you some instructions. He leaves. He gets checked out completely by the circle leader. He comes back in, and we all sit down. He goes in a cabinet, which is more or less like a bathroom, circular bathroom hoop with a black drape. He sits down. We adhere him in various different ways to a chair he's sitting in, so he can't get up and move around. And the seance begins. And in the seance beginning, there will be various people, some celebrities, some not, that will come through. They will talk to you. You will see that you will just hear their voices coming out of the air. Different physical mediums have different celebrity guests, you might call them. And they also have different non-celebrity guests, which gives you an opportunity to go back and check the stories. For instance, we had, in one seance, we had the captain of the Titanic come through and give some information that it took me a week to find out, to find that was corroborated. It was that deeply buried inside the Titanic story. So they're trying to give you information that proves that they're there, that they are, in spirit, and that they're coming through, and that who they say they are is who they say they are. And again, the whole idea is that on different levels, what it means is that we survive physical death. Now, the fun part of physical mediumship seance is the phenomena. The amount of phenomena that goes on is just really kind of fun. You have trumpets flying around the room. You have sparks in the air. You have hard, loud, sledgehammer type raps. You have the medium who's bolted to a chair in a cabinet, break free of his ties, walk around the room, sit back down, and have the ties remolded onto him. You have reversal of clothes on the medium. You have individuals who feel touches. I've often felt animals run across me, cats in between my legs. I've had physical entities in seance come and put their hands on my shoulders, pat my back, touch my head, ask me to do impossible things. It just is it's an absolutely inundation of experience that goes on that can only really be unknown if you get to attend a seance, which is the problem with physical mediumship.
I would love to.
You're in Florida?
No, Indiana.
You're in Indiana? I'll
Yeah.
find a place and find you a seance that you can go to.
Oh my God!
I'm in Florida.
Yeah. Well, it requires
Rob's in Florida. Yes. Sorry, I'm like, Rob, screw you. I want to say shut up, Rob. Let's stay out of the state.
Well, it does require an invitation because ectoplasm is photophobic. And if you're sitting in a physical mediumship seance in a a horseshoe pattern, ectoplasm flows out of the physical medium to perform various tasks like moving trumpets and cymbals and touching people and all kinds of other tasks. It moves out from the cabinet in the middle of the floor. If you throw a light on, because it's phobophobic, it will retract into the physical medium. And we've had deaths and serious illnesses. Helen Duncan be the first one I can think of that has experienced this. So it's not so much that it's something you need to prepare for. It's so much that the physical medium themselves have to be comfortable with who's coming in and understand the rules that you cannot disobey. That's part of the fun thing of screening people coming in. Now, as long as you have an understanding of what I just said, and we can have this conversation offline, by the way, or Jamie or Rob or any of you, it's just an understanding of what's going on in there and the dangers that are involved. These are very, very real dangers. Yeah. And that you have a high responsibility in a seance to
similar to signing a waiver, like when you go on an investigation, they have the rules and safety and things like that.
Yes, matter of fact, in order to get into a physical mediumship seance, you will have to sign a waiver of release, of understanding what you're supposed to be doing and blah, blah, this, that, and the other. And everything that you own is going to go into a container, except for your pants and your shirt and your socks. Everything else goes into a container so that there's nothing that you can pick up or throw or interfere with the seance. Right. So it's, a lot of people, I understand people that say, oh, it's great stuff, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not. But, they can believe whatever they want to believe. The bottom line is this can be a very dangerous environment, but it's also an absolutely exhilarating environment, an experience that it's impossible not to want to have, in my opinion.
Well, if you come up to Indiana, I was supposed to go to Florida and then COVID happened. That was supposed to be our vacation. But if you come to Indiana, please, yes, I would love to attend a seance, physical mediumship seance. That's something I've always wanted to see or experience. So yes, please, we'll definitely talk about that. And we are out of time. That's how it happens. That goes by that quick. And I should have talked to you much more about physical mediumship because we're going to have to get you back on. We're going to have to get you back on, Walter.
Next time we come on, we'll only do halftime on ET and the rest on physical mediumship. But
yeah, I'll go ET. We're done. We're going physical mediumship. I got an ET. It's something I've been doing a lot lately. I mean, it's with everything going on and the disclosure movement that I kind of like. But with everything going on and with I don't know if you've seen the Brazilian UFO wave that's been happening. So my mind's in the ET realm, but now I'm kind of like, dang it, I should have given more time to the physical media show because there's so much there. So yeah, we got to get you back on. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Walter.
Hey, real quickly, thank you. We'll do the physical mediumship thing again. And if you would like, I can arrange for one of the physical mediums. They're all my friends. One or two of them are happy to do these kinds of interviews, and we could do a three-way or something else.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. I can have, let's see. So you get to see me, Rob, and Jamie, and you. I can have two more people on. So you got two more.
Yeah, we're good then.
Awesome. Just make sure they got a camera or a computer or whatever they can do. Oh,
look, we've been doing this for a long, long time. So they understand all the technology.
Nice.
So they'll be good.
Any other last information you want to get at the audience before we go?
No, thanks again. Look, you're doing a wonderful job out here. You're learning a ton about yourself. I'm learning a ton about all your folks here, and I hope that your audience enjoys this as much as I have, because I sure have. And thank you very much.
I've enjoyed this night very much. Like I said, there's so much more we could have got to, and time goes by so fast. Thank you, Walter. We'll definitely get you back on again. We got to get into physical mediumship. But next week, we're going to have spiritual warrior Bill Bean back on, talk about more that's been going on in Bill Bean's world. So I can't wait to have him back on next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m., 11 p.m. Pacific time. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. And definitely, if you can help us out, $2 a month on Patreon does help pay the bills. So check it out there. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Have a great night. And thank you to everyone who shares the show. That's the biggest help you can do. Tell everybody there's a show where you're open for them, great chat room for people to come and not be afraid to talk about their experiences or call in a show or just listen. This is a place for all the weird and paranormal right here on Paranormal Soup. See you next Sunday.